This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, send it to me. Box 13 at greatdetectives.net. Be sure to follow us over on Facebook. Facebook.com/radiodetectives. And feel free to give us a call, 208-991-4783. Before we do get started, I want to encourage you, if you've not already, to check out my wife and I's new book, Tales of the Dim Night. It's a fun and exciting superhero comedy with a strong family message and a lot of homages to great superheroes of the Golden Age. So be sure to check out Tales of the Dim Night. You can purchase it at dimnight.com, as well as you can download a sample chapter, and we're also started up our blog tour. Well, let's go ahead. We'll get into today's episode of the Abbotts. It's the Dead White Lifeboat.
After all, even breaking up an international crime ring doesn't justify another woman's borrowing your husband for a honeymoon. Now, does it?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for another exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Tonight's story, The Dead White Lifeboat. And here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder.
Since the international situation is extremely tense and the picture changes constantly, many of the governments of the Western world that have gold, bonds, and other valuables in outlying islands, possessions, and obscure portions of the world occasionally move the bullion out. This time, the British government was moving valuables back to London, and Pat had been called in by insurance companies connected with the project to act as a private consultant on a special sea basis. So we sailed for England. At sea, I'd gone topside for a suntan. Pat had gone below for a Tom Collins. He was just leaving the bar alone and heading for the stairway when a very exotic young lady came up to him. She looked as if she'd just stepped out of a perfume ad.
Please, I'm in trouble. You've got to help me.
Why? What's wrong?
You've got to say you're my husband. I can't explain now, but it's terribly important. You must believe me. This isn't a joke or a trick. I'm very serious about it.
Now, look, I may have just come from the bar, but I'm practically sober. There's nothing wrong with me, so if this is any kind of a gimmick at all, funny or not, I'm just not interested.
It's a matter of life and death. Pretend you're my husband for a few minutes. That's all I ask. I'll explain later.
It sounds like a great way to get mixed up in a brawl or a lawsuit. Why don't you try somebody else, ma'am?
I'm telling you that you'll save my life if you'll do it. Those men, The two men coming toward us now. See them?
Yes, friends of yours?
No. No, I told you I can't explain. Just say you're my husband. For heaven's sake, I beg of you, don't let me down.
Yes, but what?
Shh. Here they come.
Hi, Rhoda.
Hello, Fred.
You remember Johnny, don't you?
Sure she does. How have you been, Rhoda?
Oh, fine. Thank you. I don't believe you've met my husband, have you? Fred Carter, Johnny Simmons. This is my husband, Harry.
Oh, glad to meet you, Harry.
Hello, Fred.
We've heard a lot about you, Harry.
Well, I'm glad to know you, too, Johnny.
We've been looking all over the boat for you, Rhoda. Then I suppose you two honeymooners have made it your business to be alone, huh?
I'm sorry we didn't get to your wedding.
Well, we were, too.
It was my fault, Johnny. I told Harry it would be in bad taste, though. You know, a second wedding for me. I didn't want a very elaborate ceremony, so we just stole away.
We'd have had to apologize to a lot of our friends. Perhaps we'll have a little reception in England, Rhoda?
I think we should, darling.
I've heard many interesting stories about you, Harry.
Yes, we could hardly wait to meet you.
I almost got to see you in Washington. When were you there?
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Let me see. Yeah, I guess that's about right.
Oh, look who's coming.
Who?
That girl, she's an old friend of mine. Jean Abbott, of all people.
I was just going
Well, Jean Abbott, I haven't seen you in years. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Just fine.
Good. How's your husband?
I was just going... My what?
I said, how's your husband?
Oh, you mean Alphonse?
That's it. I can never remember his name. Oh, Jean, meet my wife, Rhoda.
I always say that. Your wife.
How do you do, Jean?
How do you do?
And this is Fred and Johnny.
How do you do?
How are you?
Well, we seem to be running into so many old friends today, Rhoda, don't we?
Jean, did you know these two are honeymooners?
No, I certainly did not. Really?
Well, I guess Rhoda and I can't keep it a secret much longer.
But you must all meet my husband sometime. Of course, he's not well.
Oh, he isn't?
The gout came back.
It did?
He still has that eye trouble.
Oh, eye trouble?
Oh, yes, my poor husband. Cross-eyed, you know.
Well, I think we better be running along, huh?
Running along?
Yes, we'll leave these two lovebirds alone.
Sure, come on.
Lovebirds.
See you again sometime, Jean?
Well, I should hope so, Mr. Abbott.
Come on, darling. We'll go back to our cabin.
Okay, dear. Bye.
Goodbye.
Well,
Hey, care to join us for a stroll around the deck, Mrs. Abbott?
well, No, Yes, I'd be glad to.
Those two make a lovely couple, don't they?
Magnificent.
She got quite a catch in him, I'd say. Handsome fellow.
I don't know about that.
Striking couple. They probably have beautiful babies.
They'll what?
Look out, Mrs. Abbott. You'll trip in that steamer chair.
Oh.
Here, I'll help you up.
Oh.
There you are. You seem so struck by what I said. I guess you didn't see that chair.
Yes. What was it you said?
I said I imagine they'll have beautiful babies.
Yes, that's what did it. Yes. I was burning up. Not from my suntan, either. A gag is a gag, fellas, let's face it. But what in the world was Pat doing masquerading as the husband of this pinup girl? My husband gallivanting around doing the mambo and standing in the moonlight with her. Then the shock wore off, and I began thinking. Johnny and Fred began to strike me as rather tough customers. There was something insidious, probably quite vicious, underneath this monkey business on board ship. I know Pat well enough to realize he'd only be in it if he knew the score. So I let it ride a while. I knew Pat and Rhoda were alone later, in her cabin.
I don't know how to thank you, Mr.
Abbott. Pat Abbott.
Oh, then, that girl we met.
That's right. She's really my wife.
Oh.
Luckily, she picked up my hint and played the part correctly. Jean is my wife, unless she's changed her mind by now.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
That's all right. Jean's a good kid. She'll understand when I explain it to her. By the way, Rhoda, how do you explain this? Why did you have to manufacture a husband for yourself out of thin air?
Well, my husband, Harry, is with an international bank.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Washington until recently. Then we had word that Harry's uncle died and left us quite a sizable fortune. To collect it, we had to appear at a hearing in England. In Sheffield, as a matter of fact. Those two men are Harry's cousins.
I see. I suppose they're named as heirs in the will, too.
Yes, but unfortunately, they're not exactly gentlemen. Fred has a police record, and Johnny's been in some very questionable deals. Harry and I were afraid that, well, since so much money is involved, we were afraid that...
Yes, of course. They'd try to kill Harry and collect the whole amount in the will themselves.
Yes. The will stipulates if Harry dies, Fred and Johnny get all the money.
Where is Harry now?
In England, I hope. We concocted a scheme. He flew across secretly, on the Clipper. We lied and told everyone he'd be on the boat. Those are all his trunks over there. We put the luggage on board deliberately. Luckily, Fred and Johnny have never seen Harry. I didn't expect them to be on this boat. That's what frightens me even more.
Yes, I see. They appeared, so you had to produce a husband, Harry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Rhoda, you can't very well keep this hoax going all the way across, can you?
Oh, I could if you'd help me. If you'd act as my husband for the whole trip.
Well, I'd be glad to help, but my wife is on board. Wouldn't Jean provide complications?
You said she's a good sport. Wouldn't she play the game?
Well, she's played it for a few hours, but for the whole trip, well, it becomes a pretty fancy game.
Oh, I know. This whole affair strikes you as absurd, but I'm desperate. I can't do anything else.
Jean has quite a sense of humor, but I don't know if this gag would appeal to her. Put to her seriously, though.
Oh, would you ask her?
Well,
You'll save my husband's life, and more than $100,000. I don't know what might happen if Fred and Johnny found out Harry's not on board.
You're forgetting they think I'm your husband. They might start taking pot shots at me.
It's a risk. A terrible risk. But would they have the nerve to try anything as open as that? Please help me. You've got to. I shall be so grateful if you'll just do this for me.
Now, wait a minute now. Hands off, ma'am. Let's not get too grateful.
I'll make it worth your while, whatever you say.
I was just thinking,
Yes?
might not be too bad. Romantic European crossing with 2 wives.
While Pat and Rhoda were in her cabin, I was doing my best to be gay and non-committal with Fred and Johnny. Then the dinner gong sounded, and in the salon I gave myself a perfect case of galloping indigestion while I watched Pat and Rhoda at another table, being coy with each other, acting like honeymooners. For 1 shilling, I'd have gone over there and broken the clinch, but I knew I had to restrain myself. Late that night, Pat met me out on deck. It was pitch black, so we decided to risk a stroll together. Pat told me the story.
Well, darling, shall we do what Rhoda wants? Keep up the masquerade?
Well, Romeo, it looks as if you've decided that already. Why ask me?
I'll stop if you want, Jean. Just say the word and I'll call the whole thing off.
Oh, it doesn't bother me too much. Not anymore. I think beneath this very sophisticated exterior of mine beats a very primitive heart. In that first moment when I saw you with Rhoda, I wanted to scratch your eyes out. But I'm getting used to it now.
Swear?
I swear. Pat, I think you should help her. I can share you for a few days if it means saving someone's life.
Well, we've talked a lot about how you feel, darling, but I'm in this ball game, too, remember? I miss you.
Oh, Pat, darling.
Wait. Be quiet. People are coming. Come over here. No one must see us together.
Where we go?
Behind this lifeboat. Hurry. Be careful. That's it. Now, duck down behind this one. That's it.
Cozy back here, huh, Pat?
Yeah. Come closer.
I don't hear any people coming.
There aren't any.
Pat Abbott.
I just thought if you and I sat down behind this lifeboat, when nobody could see us, it's, well, as good as being parked on Observation Hill in my old jalopy. Remember those nights?
Remember them? Of course I do.
Look at that rolling water. And the stars just above the masthead. Just like one of those nights together back in New Mexico.
Oh, what in the world is
Came from down the deck. That way.
Pat, That's the alarm bell.
Men overboard! Men overboard!
Pat, wipe that lipstick off your cheek.
All right. And you've got a smudge of white paint on your nose. They must have just painted that lifeboat. Here, take my handkerchief.
Men overboard!
They're lowering a boat for him, see?
Well, there go the searchlights. They'll find him.
Where is he? Have they spotted him?
Up there, Patty. See where I'm pointing? Searchlights seem to be concentrating there. See what... Oh. Did you see him go over, Harry?
No, Fred. Mrs. Abbott and I didn't see a thing.
Where's Rhoda?
Oh, why, she's...
Isn't it all? Oh, did they find the man yet?
No, not yet, Rhoda. They're looking for him. You shouldn't come out that way. You would freeze in those pajamas.
Oh, I was so frightened when the bell rang. I just jumped out of bed and ran to the deck.
Passengers, return to your cabins, please. Return to your cabins, please. Keep the decks clear.
I returned to my cabin, and Pat went with Rhoda to her cabin. They never recovered the body, although they did their best. The ship's officers checked each cabin to find out who was missing. After the checkup, the announcement was made that Pat Abbott was missing. They questioned me, sort of implying I'd pushed my husband overboard or something. No one on board knew what he looked like except me. So I made up a description that didn't fit Pat at all, since he was supposed to be Harry Prescott, Rhoda's husband. Pat went on playing the role for Rhoda's sake. A bit too enthusiastically, I thought sometimes. Anyway, he'd steal back to my cabin occasionally and bring me up to date. The night before we were to dock at Southampton, I got a note from Rhoda asking me to come to her cabin.
I'm so glad you've come, Mrs. Abbott. I wanted to thank you. I suppose it sounds ridiculous saying thanks for the use of your husband.
It's all right, if we've helped you.
Of course you have. So much. I won't feel absolutely safe until we dock, though, when I see the real Harry waiting for me at the pier. I know Fred and Johnny. They don't give up easily. I do hope it works well at the pier and nothing goes wrong.
I don't think they've caught on.
I'm not sure. I've a terrible premonition that something awful's going to happen, especially since that night when a man went overboard.
Well, just skip the premonition. Keep calm.
I don't know what they're liable to do, what awful scheme they may have.
Well, why don't you just try to forget all about it until we reach Southampton?
I will, but it's difficult. I've tried bromides, long walks to tire myself out. I just can't sleep. I can't calm down. That's your husband now, pretending, of course, that he's mine. I'll go to the bar, have a drink, give you two a chance to be alone.
Well, both my wives. Very convenient.
I honestly think you're taking this too lightly.
Am I?
I won't be satisfied until we've landed safely and the real Harry and I are off to Sheffield.
Oh, aren't Fred and Johnny going there, too?
Yes, but my husband's bringing a private guard with him, and it's a quick trip. I was just telling Jean I'd leave you two.
See you later, Rhoda?
Certainly. Bye.
Strange feeling.
What is?
Being alone with another woman's husband.
Oh. Well, I hope you don't find it pleasant. Might become a habit.
Pat, what do you think Fred and Johnny have up their sleeves?
We'll see. They'll have to play any card they have very fast. Speaking of what's being concealed around here, have you told anyone I'm a detective?
Well, of course not.
And the assignment? The gold? The bonds? You mentioned that?
Well, certainly not. Is there some on this ship? Being moved back to England?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where'd it come from? Well, why are they shipping it from New York? I thought... Oh, I see. They're shipping it by a zigzag camouflage route. Probably brought it up from the West Indies.
Now, you just mind your own business, dear. I'm on special assignment to watch that stuff, and that's all you have to know. I just told you that much, in case anything happens to me. It might come in handy for you to know. Now, come on, let's get out of here. It'd look very bad if you're found in here. But there's no harm in our walking the deck together.
Oh, there are those two creeps again, Fred and Johnny.
Yeah.
They certainly turn up often, don't they? They couldn't be crowding us a little, could they?
They could. Hi, Fred. Hello, Johnny.
Hello there. So you two are really hitting it off, aren't you? Where's Rhoda?
You're going to the bar.
Oh, she leaves you on a honeymoon like that? With a girl as pretty as Jean?
Oh, she's not the possessive type.
It is curious, you know.
Speaking of curious facts, Fred, you and Johnny just showed up almost automatically when that man went overboard, didn't you? Just walking around, that is?
Yeah. Just walking around. Why?
Well, it's just that you two always pop up wherever Rhoda and I can be found. You turn up all over the place.
Look, my friend, I've got some advice for you. Don't shoot your mouth off. Don't dream up a lot of things. Don't ask questions. It isn't healthy.
Oh, thanks. That's kind of you, Fred. Now, I have some advice for you two. Don't start up with me. That isn't healthy either. Now get going. You heard me?
I'd like...
Wait, Freddie, wait.
Not now. Not here. Come on. See you around, friend.
Pat Abbott, you're a fine one. You'll get your head knocked off.
That's part of the idea, Jean. I want them to try something. It'll force the whole thing out into the open.
Where are you dashing to now?
The radio room. I'm going to try to reach the real Harry Prescott by cable.
Now, how can you, and what for? What are you up to?
Now, look, you don't ask questions. It isn't healthy.
Pat simply wouldn't explain. The next morning, our ship pulled into Southampton. Rhoda seemed to be in high spirits, feeling the worst was over. We came down the gangplank together, Pat, Rhoda, and I. Fred and Johnny were walking a little behind us. And as we stepped off the gangplank and onto the pier...
Harry must be here somewhere. I can't wait to see him.
Well, is he anywhere in that crowd, Rhoda, behind the ropes?
No, I don't see him yet. I'll find him back at the customs barrier, I'm sure. Don't say anything now. Here comes Fred.
Friends meeting you at the pier, Rhoda?
Yes, Fred, I expect some. I was just looking for them.
Well, I guess this is goodbye for us, Rhoda? See you later somewhere.
Mr. Abbott? Yes, I'm Pat Abbott.
You're Harry Prescott, aren't you?
What's this all about?
Well, he isn't named Abbott, Inspector.
Oh, yes, I am. You see, Fred and Johnny, I had friends waiting at the pier, too. They're very anxious to meet you, Inspector
McClintock of the Yard. We have men all over the dock, so I would advise no one to try anything.
This gentleman is Pat Abbott, and I'm his wife. First time I could say so in almost a week, and I don't mind announcing it at all. Now, let's go on from there.
Rhoda, what the devil have you done?
Don't you start anything, Fred. Rhoda told us about the will.
The will? What will?
If you'll all excuse me, I'd like to look for my husband. He might be at the other end of the pier.
I hardly think so, Rhoda.
My arm! You're hurting my arm, Mr. Abbott.
Well, I just want to be sure you won't run off on some foolish errand, Rhoda. Harry isn't on this pier, is he? He isn't even in England, I'd say.
I don't know what you're talking about. Let go of me.
Go ahead, Mr. Abbott. Let's have the rest.
Your husband is at the bottom of the ocean, isn't he, Rhoda? Your beloved husband you've been so worried about? Right? He's dead and gone.
Inspector, I appeal to you. This man is...
Please continue, Mr. Abbott.
When the roll call was made, after a man went overboard, they said Pat Abbott was missing. That meant Harry was really the man that was missing, didn't it? I'd taken his place, hadn't I?
Rhoda, if you pulled a trick like that...
Oh, but she did, Fred.
She murdered Harry?
Certainly. I knew your husband must have registered on board, Rhoda, or the roll call would never have come out that way. Your husband worked for an international bank, all right. He was helping bring gold and bonds and other valuables to London. He wanted to keep his presence on board very quiet, so he stayed in his cabin, allowed no one to spot him. Well, that played right into your hands. You had a smuggling gimmick figured out with Freddie and Johnny. They'd knock him off, use his papers, his keys, get access to the bullion, sneak some of it off the ship in that luggage you pointed out to me.
You can't prove any of that.
But then you got greedy. You decided you wouldn't have to split with Freddie and Johnny. You'd do it all yourself. They'd never seen Harry. So you got me to portray your husband. Freddie and Johnny would go off on a wild goose chase trying to kill me. And they'd step into trouble they didn't expect. Meantime, you killed Harry yourself. dragged the body out in the dead of night and shoved it into the sea.
But evidence, Pat. I don't see how you can really
Dear,
prove...
remember when you and I hid behind that lifeboat and you got white paint on your nose?
Well, certainly.
Well, they just painted the lifeboats. When Rhoda came out on deck, she was in pajamas. Remember?
Why,
and it struck me as being just odd enough to call for some investigation. So during one of the many times I was in your cabin, Rhoda, I looked at your dresses. One of them had a big white smudge on it. Paint. From the lifeboat. Now, don't tell me you can explain how that happened. Jean and I hid behind one for a reason, but why did you? Could it be that you hid the dead body there till you got the right moment, when the deck was deserted, so you could push it over? Or could it be you sweated it out when somebody saw the body go over and turned in an alarm? Or could it be that you saw the murder rap coming if they found that body in the water?
Well, then, Pat, there isn't any will or any dead uncle.
Inspector, I'd like to make a small bet with you that Rhoda has a very fancy trunk with hidden compartments. And in the compartments, you'll find very high-valued negotiable bonds, securities, yes, maybe some pure gold, all of which was in Harry's custody. And if you'll check with the purser...
I already have. Harry had a safe deposit box. Rhoda here visited quite a few times. That being watched or questioned, of course, being his wife. The box is quite empty. That stuff in the trunk, too, Rhoda?
You can't hold us, Inspector. We didn't do a thing.
Except plan to lift all those valuables with Rhoda. Except planned homicide before she beat you to it. Shall we get off the pier? Have a car waiting.
Oh, Rhoda?
Yes, Mrs. Abbott.
My curiosity's killing me. The jig's up, so I presume you'll tell the truth. I think I know all about this crime, but,
Yes?
Well, you spent so much time alone with my husband. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering.
Wondering what happened between us?
Exactly.
The car is waiting. We've the boat train to catch to London, Jean.
Well, Rhoda?
Suppose we leave that part of the mystery unsolved, shall we? After all, it's the best part, isn't it?
I hate that woman.
Oh, she was just being coy. After all, a woman would get satisfaction from not answering that question you asked.
I hate you, too.
No, this is a fine, high-class London hotel. We're comfortable. Food is better in England now. We've got theater tickets, dinner dates with friends. Relax, dear. Enjoy your stay here.
How did Scotland Yard know you wanted them to meet you here at the dock?
Well, when I went to the radio room, I wired the yard to ask if they knew a Harry Prescott. They wired back that he worked for an international bank and was on board our ship with valuables. So I told them to meet us and have the whole pier covered, in case Fred, Johnny, or Rhoda tried anything fancy.
Mm-hmm. How long will we be here?
Oh, it'll take about a week to wrap up my assignments. The British government's bringing lots of valuables back to London on various ships and planes, and don't ask when or where. You can go on shopping sprees. I'll be back every night.
Look, Pat, the Thames. It's corny, but every time I look out the window in London, I get a big charge.
I know, so do I. Parliament, Westminster. The Bobby's on the corner. I'm a real pushover, too. Tourist type. Gawking, wide-eyed American. Yeah, it's a thrilling view from here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Thrilling, darling.
You seem so thoughtful. What are you thinking? About us? Wishing we're on a honeymoon again?
No.
You want to duck tonight's date and go somewhere alone? Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Thinking how much you love me?
No.
Well, what is it, darling?
I hate that woman.
Oh.
I hate that woman.
the National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. The cast included Catherine Barrett, Santos Ortega, and Maurice Tarplin. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. This is Wayne Howell speaking. Next week, same time, same station. Another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, this was a fascinating plot, and I think Pat and Jean really, in this episode, a lot of understanding, and I think some good developments in the way the relationship was portrayed. They did reuse a color scheme, and I guess that's one of the challenges when you're doing a radio show, and you're using colors in the title, is that there was only so many colors that are applicable. Next week, they're reusing blood red in the title, although it's going to be a very different plot from the Blood Red Diamonds. Well, before we do sign off today, I want to acknowledge Kelly sent us a very nice tip, and we will send her the information to access our premium site, which has all the extras we do on the apps for those without an Android or iPhone, for both Great Detectives and Old Time Dragnet. Well, that'll do us for this week on the Abbotts. We'll be back tomorrow with Nero Wolfe. Well, before we do get started, I do want to let you know about Audible. If you struggle to find time to read, Audible is a great service for you, as you are able to listen to audiobooks whenever it's convenient for you. And whether you want to listen to a mystery, or you want to take a listen to a topic that you're concerned about, whether it's economics, politics, theology, science, or nearly anything else, Audible brings a world of great books right to your MP3 player. You get one free audiobook per month with your Audible membership, as well as a discount on any additional audio entertainment you want to get from Audible. You can try Audible out free for 14 days and get a free audiobook by going to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio. Be sure to listen after our show, where we have some more exciting news about Rogues Gallery that we will share with you. But let's get into today's adventure, The Case of the Hasty Will.
3 chimes mean good times on NBC. You're invited every Saturday over most of these NBC stations to a 1-hour concert by the renowned NBC Symphony. Tomorrow's symphony performance features Metropolitan Opera star Helen Trouble as guest soloist. For tomorrow's broadcast, the orchestra will be under the baton of the widely acclaimed conductor Wilfred Pelletier. For the world's great music, hear the NBC Symphony, brought to you tomorrow and every Saturday. Transcribed. Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell brings you mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. Yes, who's calling? Mr. John Blake? Well, is this a matter of business? That's fine, Mr. Blake. I'll just call him.
Archie, I'm not here. Tell him I'm up in the plant room with the orchids.
I was going to call him to the phone, but he's up in the plant room with his orchids. What sort of a case is this, sir? Really? Really, is that so?
Is it a man or a woman?
Oh, I understand perfectly. It's a man.
Well, at least that's something different.
Yes, sir. Very urgent, I understand. And I assure you, Mr. Wolfe will be here waiting for you. The fee? Shall we say about, 1,000?
I will not see any client until after dinner. Fritz is having mountain quail on toast.
Yes, Mr. Blake. Come at once. What were you saying, boss?
Confound you, Archie. Nothing but business. All the time. What's the problem?
I don't know. And at $1,000, considering our bank balance, I'll help him poison his great-grandmother.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that renowned genius who is the bulkiest, balkiest, most ponderous, and most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chair-borne mass of unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe. Created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sidney Greenstreet.
What we chose to refer to as the case of the Hasty will began, of course, with an urgent phone call from the mysterious John Blake. At the moment, Nero Wolfe was seated in his chair, which was specially built for his 300 pounds, and I was giving him a lecture on the importance of money.
Archie, that will do. I'm not interested.
You will be when you learn you can make no more purchases of beer and Skittles. You've passed up 2 cinch cases now. Each would have meant a healthy fee. Let us hope this Mr. Blake has a nice, fat problem that will take us days to solve.
Archie.
Yes, sir?
Answer the door.
Good evening. I'm John Blake.
Oh, yes. Come in, Mr. Blake. You have no idea how welcome you are.
Archie, show Mr. Blake in and close the door. That draft is unbearable.
This way, sir. Mr. Wolfe doesn't care for anything resembling air. Oh, I'm Archie Goodwin.
Good evening, Mr. Blake.
Mr. Wolfe, I have a little business for you. Now, before you say anything, I know you're not a lawyer.
I'm not a member of the bar, let us say, Mr. Blake.
Of course.
What kind of business, Mr. Blake?
I have here a short will, which I have typewritten myself. I haven't signed it yet. Also, I have here a sealed envelope containing a letter which I want you to be prepared to deliver to the addressee.
A will and a letter. Very well.
Yes. Do you know who I am?
Seems that I've certainly seen you before.
Same here. I just can't place you.
Well, I'm John Blake, president of the Plymouth Building and Loan.
Oh, of course. I've seen your picture many times.
You have a staff of the best attorneys in the city, Mr. Blake, and this is most assuredly the business of attorney.
Perhaps. But in this particular instance, I wanted an individual who had no interest in me, nor previous knowledge of my affairs.
I see.
Also, I wanted a person who was, well, shall we say, not too well fixed.
Well, you certainly couldn't
Archie.
have... Imagine Mr. Wolfe being in need of money.
Just why can't your attorneys handle this?
You'll know in a moment. But when I leave here, I want you to forget the whole thing, for the time being.
Indeed. You have said it.
Here's the will. You may read it.
Archie.
January 25, 1951. To my daughter, Anita Blake, I do hereby bequeath all my property, personal and real, including the portrait painting of her mother, my dear deceased wife, Marcia Blake. This will supersedes any and all instruments previously drawn.
So, simple enough, isn't it?
That's all. Now, the pen, please, and I'll sign it. Now then, you sign as witness, Mr. Goodwin. You retain the will, Mr. Wolfe, and the envelope here, which is addressed to Hilary Blake, my brother, who is now living in this city.
Your brother?
He's just recently returned from 25 years in Australia. Though Hilary has written me several times, I have not favored him. We've been estranged these many years over, a certain unpleasant situation which this enclosed letter will clear up.
Are you in fear of your life, Mr. Blake? Murder?
No, Mr. Wolfe. There was a time, yes, but, not now. You will know what to do with the will and the letter, though, when the time arrives. Now, as to your fee, you said, $1,000?
Well, we usually receive...
$1,000 will do.
Well, here's a check, all made out.
If you're thinking of suicide, Mr. Blake, we must warn you.
If you don't care to go through with this, please say so. I'm not planning on suicide, I assure you.
We have taken the job, Mr. Blake.
Then good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for your kind indulgence.
Well, that's the simplest little $1,000 we ever made.
I believe, Mr. Goodwin, you're going to be quite surprised. I want you to get acquainted with John Blake's secretary. You have more than earned this $1,000, young man. Archie. Archie, is that you?
Yes, boss.
What time is it?
It is 6 p.m. The clock is right in front of your eyes.
I'm thinking, Archie, it's very interesting. Very. An entire day has passed since the visit from John Blake. Did you learn anything from Blake's secretary?
I did. He left his office late yesterday, she said. His daughter Anita is quite upset because he didn't come home.
Check his club?
Yup. I didn't talk to the daughter, but I learned that she's engaged to a young fellow named Wilbur Martin. She told the secretary that her father had been acting strangely of late, a bit morose.
And what does the daughter feel has happened?
Anita's afraid he's been kidnapped.
You haven't met nor talked to any other than the secretary?
Not yet. And so far, no one's called the police.
Good. We must, for the time being, prevent that. What did you learn of Blake's brother from Australia?
He's been here only a year. They've met only once or twice since his return. The secretary thinks the breakup was because of their love for the same woman. Hillary became very wealthy in Australia.
Very well, Archie. It is time for you to visit Miss Anita Blake at her home.
I'd love to, boss. She's a mighty purty gal.
Boy. Archie, you can do me a great service.
Anything.
Be sure to close it tightly as you leave.
Close what?
The coal chute, of course.
I'm awfully glad you could come, Uncle Hillary. Wilbur seemed to think you might know something about Father's disappearance.
No, I don't know, Wilbur. I'm just as nonplussed as you are.
When did you see your brother last?
Oh, it's been 4 or 5 months. Why?
Oh, I just wanted to know.
What do you two think has become of him? Surely you know his recent actions better than I.
Well, at first I thought he'd been kidnapped. Now I'm afraid it's suicide.
Oh, I say, really now. Have you been putting such ideas into our head, young man?
On the other hand, could have been murder.
Indeed. Well, I suggest that the police be called. Hospitals, the morgue, every place. Have you thought of doing that, young man?
I was going to.
Oh, really? Then what are you stalling about? I'll just step into the library and do it myself.
Oh, it can't be, Wilbur. It just can't be.
Miss Blake, there's a Mr. Goodwin to see your father.
Oh, I'll see him.
Thank you, Miss Blake. I'm Archie Goodwin.
This is my fiancé, Mr. Wilbur Martin.
Mr. Martin?
How do you do?
What is it you want, Mr. Goodwin?
Is your father here, Miss Blake?
Why, no. No, he isn't.
What is your business, Mr. Goodwin? Why do you want to see Mr. Blake?
As a matter of fact, I don't really want to see Mr. Blake because I don't think he's here. I came to see Miss Blake.
Just who are you?
I'm a detective.
Police?
Private investigator with Nero Wolfe. John Blake has disappeared. I know you're trying to keep it out of the press because you think he's been kidnapped.
We have called the police.
Oh, what do you think has happened to my father?
I think he's dead.
Oh, dear. Why do you think that?
Yes. Just what do you know, Mr. Goodwin?
Oh, Anita, I want to ask you a few questions. I think it's advisable.
Mr. Blake.
Yes?
I thought you were done for. That is...
I don't think I...
This chap is a detective.
I'm sorry about this, Mr. Blake, but curiosity got the better of me. I hope I haven't wrecked things.
What are you talking about?
You remember the agreement.
What agreement?
Mr. Goodwin, do you know who you're talking to?
Why, yes, John Blake.
Oh, no, Mr. Goodwin. This is my Uncle Hillary, my father's brother.
Hillary? Hillary Blake?
Yes, my father's twin brother.
John and Hillary were twins.
Of course.
It's news to me. I didn't know that.
What did you know about him?
Well, now that I look at him, now that I can recall his speech, there is a difference.
And now, why do you think John Blake is dead?
I've just come from police headquarters.
You mean he's been murdered?
No. From all indications, he's committed suicide.
Suicide? Are you sure?
Poor father. Oh, I was afraid of this.
This morning, a hat and an overcoat were found on the East River docks near Pier 9. In the coat was a typewritten copy of a will made yesterday. The hat bears the initials J.B.
There was a will?
Yes. Could you identify the hat and coat, Miss Blake?
Well, yes, of course.
Very well. Come in, Sergeant. This is Sergeant Hanlon. Miss Blake, do you recognize this coat and hat?
Yes. Oh, yes, I do. They were father's. Oh, Wilbur.
Suicide? I can't understand it.
But the hat and coat are not conclusive evidence. What about the will found in the pocket?
Show them the will, Sergeant. Read it, miss.
You read it, Wilbur?
To my daughter, Anita Blake, I do hereby bequeath all my property, personal and real, including the portrait painting of her mother, my dear deceased wife, Marcia Blake. This will supersedes any and all instruments previously drawn. But no signature.
I have the original. Here you are.
Where did you get this?
Notice the signature of the witness?
Archie Goodwin. You witnessed his signature?
In Nero Wolfe's office.
But Mr. Blake had his own attorneys.
Nevertheless, he came to Mr. Wolfe to take care of the will. If we hadn't recognized him from his photos in the papers, I wouldn't have witnessed the signature.
Anita, is this your father's handwriting?
Yes. Yes, it's his, all right.
But this still isn't proof that he's dead, nor that he committed suicide. No corpus delicti.
And the body may not be found for days. But this evidence we have here certainly indicates that a body will be found eventually.
Maybe not, Mr. Goodwin. It's possible they could have...
What were you going to say?
Nothing.
Miss Blake, in a way, I blame myself for your father's death.
How do you mean?
I had a sort of premonition. It's obvious now why he came to Nero Wolfe.
Is it?
He wanted someone who didn't know him personally. His own attorneys would have been able to see through his plan and prevent his carrying it out.
But he made a will. Why did he draw this new one?
Yes, that's what I don't understand.
Well, I still am not convinced that he committed suicide.
Mr. Blake, here is a letter he asked to be delivered to you.
Oh, well, now.
Perhaps it will shed some light on the problem.
What does it say, Uncle?
Jove. It says, Hillary, 25 years now, jealousy and bitterness have kept us apart. I know why you stayed in Australia all these years. I know you loved Marcia. She was rightfully yours. But I loved her, too, and I couldn't go on without her. I know you've despised us both, and I've pretended to despise you. I had to pretend, because I lied to Marcia. I told her you were engaged to marry a woman in Sidney. Marcia was innocent. I was to blame. When Marcia died last year, and you wrote that you were coming back, I knew then that your resentment had faded, but I didn't answer you, and I've kept away from you because I couldn't face you. I've told you all this because things have happened which you will learn soon enough that have decided me to close my book and write fini. I have made a new will, leaving everything I possess to Anita. Anita is young, Hillary, and I beg you to watch after her as though she were your own, which, but for my selfishness, she might well have been. Forgive me, Hillary.
Well, this certainly indicates suicide.
But what does he mean by things have happened?
That, Miss Blake, is the motive, for which we'll just have to wait.
Yes, for that and the body.
Well, boss, up here in the conservatory a bit early, aren't you? How are the orchids?
Oh, it's a nice sunny morning. Even though it is around 0 outside, the sun is fine for them. And behold, Archie.
Huh? What is it?
The Dendrobium sclerostel.
Yes, indeed. What about it?
Showing 2 buds. Most encouraging.
Indeed so. Boss, I can't take the steam heat here.
Tell me, this painting of Marcia Blake, is it large?
It hangs over the Blake mantel, about 3 by 4 feet.
I find it most intriguing that John Blake should mention the painting in so short a will. And Hillary, does he seem to offer any suggestion on this problem?
He has very little to say. Wilbur has definite ideas, and he's in there pitching all the time. He has a rather unpleasant way about him, though.
You have talked with Inspector Kramer?
I have.
And asked Miss Anita and Hillary to meet you at the morgue to look at the body?
Right. And I left Wilbur out of this gathering.
This body is practically unidentifiable, huh?
In Kramer's opinion, it is.
After you're finished down there, I'd like to have a chat with this Wilbur Martin.
Okay, but you'll get nothing out of him. I've tried.
Archie, you're becoming so conceited. Soon I fear I'll have to fire you.
If it were summer, I would forthwith resign.
Run along and close our coal chute behind you.
Morning, Inspector Kramer. Up early.
Yeah, Goodwin. I just love to come down to this morgue.
This is Miss Anita Blake and her Uncle Hillary Blake.
Howdy
How do you
do.
do? Good morning, Mr. Goodwin. I hope you don't object too much to my joining the proceedings.
Oh, I know, Wilbur. I suppose it's all right.
Please, Mr. Goodwin, what's happened?
There's a body here. Rather badly bruised and cut and in a bad condition, but I think you should look at it.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Miss Blake, but I'm afraid it's necessary.
Very well. I'll be all right.
I'd like to come along.
Oh, yes, Wilbur, you must.
Well, come on. This way. Well, here we are.
Wilbur.
you say, Miss Blake?
Now get hold of yourself, Anita. Please, you must.
Yes. Yes, that's Father.
And you, Mr. Blake?
It's certainly hard to say. It looks as though it might be John. Was there no means of identification on the body? No jewelry or...
Father never wore any jewelry.
There was nothing but this suit here. Nothing in the pockets.
That's Father's suit, all right. I know. Oh, why? Why did he do it?
Come along now. That's all for today. Mr. Wolfe, this is Mr. Wilbur Martin.
Ah, yes. How do you do, Mr. Martin? Sit down.
Thank you, sir.
No. Take the red leather chair. That's right.
So glad you could come. Archie, beer first. Tell me, Mr. Martin, you saw the body?
I did. Whether it was John Blake or not, I'm not sure. But Anita feels positive enough.
You are skeptical about the suicide theory, eh?
Well, yes, I am.
Are you trying to cast suspicion on someone else?
No.
He thinks he was murdered.
I do?
But not by you, of course.
Certainly not.
But who would know that John came here, signed the will, and gave us the letter to his brother? He must have contemplated suicide, don't you think?
Are you positive it was John Blake who signed the will?
How interesting. You think it was his brother Hillary who came here, posing as John, huh?
It could have been.
But the man was quite gray and had no Australian accent.
Hillary could have dropped the accent for a short while and grayed his hair, and they were twins.
So enlightening, Mr. Martin. Do go on.
After he left you here, he could have killed John and thrown him in the river, and left his overcoat and hat on the wharf.
And why would Hillary kill John?
Well, there may have been several reasons. Maybe because of Marcia. Several reasons.
Tell me, did John Blake object to your engagement to Anita?
No, why should he?
I don't know. Amelia asked. Anita Blake identified her father's handwriting. She identified the body. You still believe it's murder?
Maybe she only thought it was his handwriting.
You had best be careful, Wilbur. In trying to make a murder out of this, you might place yourself in a most unhappy position.
I checked the letter and the will with papers at John's office, and the handwriting is identical, in my opinion.
Maybe Hillary is clever at forgery.
Maybe.
Did you have the experts check the writing?
Not yet.
Then how can you tell unless you had a bona fide sample of Hillary's writing?
I take it that you found a sample of Hillary's writing? Some letters from Hillary to John?
Yes. I found a package of them in John's desk at his home.
That, Wilbur, is most encouraging.
Here they are. Several of them tied together. Some written in 1928 and a couple in 1948.
Now, we'll tell you something. We never thought John committed suicide either.
You didn't?
No. And before you go, Wilbur, write your name here on this pad.
Very well.
Thank you so much. I hope we shall see you tomorrow. Well, I'm surprised, Inspector Kramer, to see you out in such inclement weather.
I like the cold spells.
Sit in the red leather chair.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. Have your experts finished checking the will and the letter?
Yep, but not all through with the package of Hillary's old letters that Wilbur found.
What's the verdict?
If this is forgery, it's the cleverest bit of forgery we've ever come across. My men say the will and the letter you received appear identical with the specimens from John's office.
Indeed. The will and the letter then do seem to have been written by John Blake.
Yes. But on the other hand, and this is unusual, by comparing this letter from John with a letter Hillary wrote from Australia in 1948, we found characteristics in both men's letters which were definitely similar.
Then, Inspector, you feel that Hillary might have written the letter and signed the will. That is, it was Hillary who came to my office?
It's a tough thing to prove, but I think that's being on the right track.
Inspector, what about the rest of the package of letters I got from Wilbur Martin?
They're still working on those down at headquarters.
What about young Wilbur?
So far, can't see much in him to worry about, but it's a bit early.
Archie, phone out to the Blake mansion and tell Wilbur Martin that we've uncovered the whole thing. And if Wilbur's in on it, he'll be gone before you get there. We can pick him up later.
Okay. I'll let you know about the rest of Hillary's letters.
Good. We won't phone out there until you're finished.
And I'll call you as soon as possible.
Archie, I want you to look into the affairs of the Plymouth Building and Loan Company. See what you can learn about the actual stability of the company.
Okay. Boss, please put on your muffler and overcoat and open a window. A candle couldn't burn in this place. Yeah. I'm on my way.
Anita!
What is it, Wilbur? What's happened?
I came out as soon as I heard.
Well, what's happened? Speak up, man.
You haven't heard? You don't know?
No, what?
Look at these headlines.
Plymouth Building and Loan crashes. Wilbur, what does this mean?
It means your father embezzled the funds of the company and he has gone to the wall.
What?
Yes, close the doors.
Oh, no, Wilbur, no, I can't believe such a
I'm
thing.
sorry, Anita, but there it is in black and white.
Then this is the motive for John's suicide.
Why?
Why? Because he knew he was caught. What else?
He could have put the money back, couldn't he?
Yes, but maybe he lost it by trying to make more to cover up the shortage.
I don't think he lost it.
You don't?
No.
Oh, nonsense. He must have. Else why would he kill himself?
Maybe he didn't kill himself.
Oh, this is awful.
Oh, please, Anita, you mustn't worry. I know this is very embarrassing for you, but it isn't your fault. Now, let me take you away for a while. We can run down to Mexico until this blows over.
You won't take her to Mexico. You won't take her any place.
Just what do you mean?
What's wrong with you, Wilbur? You're acting stupid.
Your father may have fleeced the company, but I don't believe he lost the money.
Wilbur.
He hid the money, and your Uncle Hillary found the hiding place. And he set up the suicide to cover your father's murder. Hillary killed him.
Oh, you're crazy. You're out of your mind.
Why, this doesn't make sense. I have all the money I need.
Yes, you have now.
Pack your things, Anita. I'll phone the airport for reservations.
You can't leave at a time like this. You won't leave this room.
Do you know what can be done to you for threatening people with firearms? I'll call the police.
You don't need to call the police. I've just talked to that detective, Mr. Goodwin. He's on his way here. The police have uncovered everything. I know you killed John, and you have the money.
Wilbur, you're out of your mind.
I know what I'm talking about.
Get out of here. Get out!
I won't leave. No one will leave till Goodwin comes.
Archie, come in, Miss Blake. Mr. Blake, Mr. Martin, glad you were all able to accept my invitation. You too, Inspector Kramer.
Yeah, I know how glad you are I could be here, Wolfe.
Please be seated, folks.
Hillary was going to Mexico on the next plane and taking Anita with him.
Mexico?
John Blake stole the money from the company, but Hillary found out about it and killed him.
Mr. Wolfe, this is utter nonsense.
Mr. Blake, Inspector Kramer's handwriting experts have examined the will and the letter left with me. They have also checked them with your recent letters from Australia.
Indeed.
And your letters from Australia show a definite resemblance, having the same characteristics as the letter and the will you've given me.
You mean you think that I signed the will and wrote the letter?
Definitely.
Ridiculous.
But there's something else. The will mentions a painting of Marcia Blake, Anita's mother. Archie, where is that painting? Did you bring it?
It's here.
Bring it in here, Sergeant.
Just a moment.
I hope you don't mind, Miss Blake.
What are you doing to it?
Tearing off the paper backing of the picture?
Yes, and there you are. There's the reason for the whole thing.
Bonds. Pasted in the back. Thousands of dollars in negotiable bonds. Then Hillary did know about the money. He killed John for all this. He had Anita order the picture to be credited for shipping.
I did no such thing.
Nevertheless, you didn't kill John Blake.
Certainly he did.
Look at these two letters from Hillary Blake to John here in America. What are the dates?
September and November 1948.
Those were supposedly Hillary's most recent letters to John. And look at these letters, June and July 1928. Notice any difference?
All are signed by Hillary, but the ones dated 1928 are not at all like the ones written in 1948.
Not the least similarity. The ones dated 1928 were written by Hillary. But those dated 1948 were written by John.
By John? How do you mean?
Carry on, Inspector.
You're under arrest, Mr. Blake. Not for murder, because there's been no murder. You're under arrest on a charge of embezzlement.
Embezzlement? Oh, but how
And
can
you, Miss Blake, are under arrest as an accomplice.
What? I don't understand. Mr. Wolfe.
Wilbur, you yourself unearthed the old 1928 letters, really written by Hillary from Australia. The recent letters are not in the same handwriting. They were poorly forged by John in 1948. Furthermore, we checked with Australia and learned that Hillary Blake died in Sydney 10 years ago.
And this man here is really John Blake, posing as Hillary to escape the penalty for looting the company.
Anita. It just doesn't seem possible.
Anita knew all about it, and they might have gotten away with it if they hadn't come to us, Archie.
What a fantastic plan.
I'm giving you back your $1,000, Mr. Blake, but I'm afraid it won't do either of you much good now. Thank you so much, Inspector Kramer, for dropping in.
Well, boss, that was a clever bit of deduction.
You really think so, Archie? It was quite a blunder for so clever a man as John Blake.
Why did he make the mistake of coming to us?
There are many holes in the plans of the criminal mind. He must have forgotten about the 1928 letters, or he would have destroyed them.
And he underestimated Wilbur's intelligence. And I thought he was a dope, too. But he was half right.
He really slipped up on the body in the morgue. Inspector Kramer was most kind to cooperate with us in that little act. Anita was too eager to identify the first body she saw.
And the painting. You sensed there was more importance attached to it than the fact that it was a work of art.
True. Some beer, please, Archie.
Coming up, boss?
Now, that brings me to an unpleasant subject.
What's that?
You were talking about resigning. Are you still in that frame of mind?
Resigning? When did I say anything like that?
Then you're going to be content with conditions as they are?
Why, of course. What are you saying?
And you don't mind it a bit as long as this dreadful weather continues?
Well, not at all. Don't mind what?
Going in and out of the house through the coal chute.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by John Edison was based on the characters created by Rex Stout and produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In tonight's cast were Harry Bartell as Archie Goodwin, and Victor Rodman, Louise Arthur, Hal Gerard, and Bill Johnstone. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you The Case of the Disappearing Diamonds. Don Stanley speaking. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, there were a couple ways that this mystery ring really true to Nero Wolfe, and a couple that it didn't. First of all, the actual plot of the story, while not the same, had some similarities to the plot of the Nero Wolfe novella, Instead of Evidence. There were a couple little twists. One, Wolfe giving back the money, and when he's actually performed the service that was required of him, he doesn't really do that. And then the policeman waiting outside while Archie questioned the suspect. But on the bright side, this does give you a chance to see some things happen in a Nero Wolfe story that you'll never see in the original. I did get an email from Andrew Rhines regarding the Harry Bartell episodes. He emailed to let me know I mentioned Horizons West was one of the Harry Bartell vehicles, and he has got that over on the Old Time Radio Daily Westerns at otrwesterns.com. And new episodes are being posted every Friday, and probably by the time of this recording, they're up to week 9 of 13. And that's actually a series that would be pretty interesting, based on the Lewis and Clark expedition. And my family genealogist, my late Aunt Doris, went back and found that our family actually had some relation to Meriwether Lewis by marriage. And he also, one thing Andrew does that I don't do is he consistently tags the episodes with all the stars in them. And he's tagged all of the episodes with Harry Bartell. And even just with the westerns of Gunsmoke, Have Gun Will Travel, and Horizons West. It is an impressive, you really do see all that Bartell contributed to making radio great. So, oh, and I mentioned we had an announcement regarding Rogues Gallery. last week we mentioned, or 2 weeks ago, we mentioned we're going to go ahead and move Rogues Gallery up because 2 new episodes have been found. Well, the Old Time Radio researchers released their 4th edition of the certified Rogues Gallery set, and we have yet another episode of Rogues Gallery. So this is one of those pleasant things that happens. Originally, we'd been planning to bring you 21 weeks of Rogues Gallery, 20 of those starring Dick Powell. Now we're going to be offering you 24 weeks of Rogues Gallery, 22 starring Dick Powell. So, a positive thing happening in the discovery of new radio shows. New old radio shows for your listening pleasure. Anyway, that'll do it for us now. For now, we'll be back next week with another episode of Nero, Wolfe. Well, before we do get started, I want to let you know about a special sale we're having on Tales of the Dim Night. It's an ebook sale. It's a comedy story, and so in honor of upcoming April Fool's Day, Tales of the Dim Night is available as an ebook for 99 cents for Kindle and for $1 for all other readers via a Smashwords.com coupon. We're particularly trying to climb the Amazon Kindle bestseller list over these 3 days, so you can get a copy, dimnight.com, and check out Tales of the Dim Night. Well, let's get into today's episode of Let George Do It. Every shot counts.
Personal notice, danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Every shot counts. Another adventure of George Valentine.
Mr. Valentine, sir. I'm a cowboy movie star. I'm sure you must have seen me sometime, even if it's only on television. Well, anyway, I know how silly it sounds, but I need help. There's a most desperate situation that requires the action of a hero. And while I'd like to qualify, this same situation requires certain proficiencies that I haven't got. Notably, there's a mystery. Mysteries aren't my longest suit. You see, I met her. But just barely. And Mr. Valentine, this lovely young lady I refer to, she's in distress. She is.
But, Mr. Disbrow, in your letter you didn't tell us...
Daphne. That's who she is.
Oh.
Daphne.
Daphne, huh?
Yeah. I met her just the other day, you realize. I was talking to a man I know, a song plugger. That's like a Fuller Brush man, only with music, see. He pointed her out. You know the type, Miss Brooks, a little school teacher type that's always having westerns, you know, big, bashful blue eyes and hair like honey and a heart just as big as all out of doors, you know.
With a head to match. I know.
Oh, who cares if she's smart? I don't. Anyway, I find this little girl lives all alone, way up in the Imperial Crest Apartments.
Uh-oh, I take it back.
Daphne does all right, doesn't she?
Oh, she has money, but she's nervous, if you know what I mean. So nervous she'll hardly talk. And afraid? Oh, yeah, I think somebody's watching her up there.
Well, I'm not surprised. A big bad wolf, maybe.
Me? No, this is different. No. It is. She didn't even want to meet me, and most women do.
Oh, now look, cowboy.
Yeah, and today when I tried to talk to her on the street, even after I'd been properly introduced, she just walked away.
So am I.
Now, wait a minute, Mr. Valentine. Now, she wanted to talk, and she would have, if the man she walked away with hadn't been carrying a gun.
Oh. So maybe it is a case, huh? What man?
Big. Bigger than both of us. Black hair and sour face.
Her husband, maybe.
No, she told me she wasn't married. I don't know who he is, but she's afraid of him, all right.
Uh-huh. And what do you want me to do, scare him away?
Now, figure it out, Mr. Valentine. Meet her. Protect her before something worse happens. And then let me know before it does.
No, I see. That's it. I do the dirty work, hand you the answers, and then you step in to scare away the rustlers.
And win the girl, of course.
Well, that's right, honey. And having keep my public name intact, my fans and all, I'm a beautiful patsy.
Okay, partner. But don't think you got a corner on the market. Hey, what the...
I put your cigarette out, didn't I?
Well...
One shot at 30 feet, that's pretty good. Oh, but I missed the sandbag again. Look at them holes in my wall.
Hey, lady, you got holes in your head.
Oh, now
What?
don't be angry. I'm practicing here on my roof garden. See that clay pipe down there? I never miss.
Oh, fine. You must make a big hit with lots of people.
Well, my landlord and neighbors do complain once in a while. See the other pipe?
You...
But I talk them out of it.
Well, now, look, I don't talk so easy.
Don't you?
No, he doesn't.
Not when you're around, you mean?
All right, Annie Oakley, so you're nice to look at.
Daphne Crockett, girl type Davy.
Crockett? Oh, of course. The Club Paris.
Mm-hmm. I've been there 5 years, longest run of any acting nightclub. Everybody likes my shooting.
Oh, so that's it. Little Red Riding Hood turns out to be Two-Gun Nellie, professional bullseye artist.
Mr. Valentine, where are you going?
To see the bull about some black eyes. No, wait a minute. I'm here now. I might as well speak my piece, even if it's only for laughs.
Speak your piece. Like Miles Standish?
In a way. Only John Alden's name this time is Rafe Disbrow.
Oh, him.
Yeah, he's funny, all right. He thinks you're in danger. The cowboy says you're being watched up here.
He says what?
Well, there's the building next door. I guess from that one apartment over there, you could
probably... Oh, no. No, of course not.
All right, lady. But the rest of my recitation says you're afraid of a big man, black hair, sour face. How about that one?
Mr. Disbrow has quite an imagination, hasn't he?
Maybe. And maybe not.
I suppose he sent you over here to protect me.
That was a general idea. And think twice before you say no.
I'll show you what I think of Mr. Disbrow in spite of that lovely Texas accent. You see those 3 little dolls in a row?
Lady, I said think twice.
And there are 3 bullets left in this gun.
Oh, now look, if you are in trouble,
3
Daphne...
answers you can take back.
Okay, lady, never mind. We get the idea. This is where we came in, Angel. Hey, that was 4.
Miss Crockett, Daphne!
No, I'm all right. Oh, God, you missed me.
What missed you? Where'd that extra shot come from?
No, there wasn't one. Get out of here, won't you? Please leave me alone. Please, leave me alone.
Don't waste your breath, lady. We've already gone.
George, shall I telephone Lieutenant Riley?
No, he's on vacation. Ask for Clary and tell him to get up there fast.
Yeah,
I got a date next door, Angel. See you in the second reel. There's a card outside this apartment. Says R.C. For you, him?
I don't know. For you?
Now, look, Bright Eyes, I want some...
to look? A guy comes busting in, upsets my equilibrium. I'm teaching myself canasta. Now go away.
All right, don't mind me. I won't tell if you cheat.
Your manners get worse. The door's back that way. Remember?
Yeah, just call me a building inspector. Come to take a look at your window, that's all.
Don't fall out.
Yeah, this is it, all right. The only apartment from which you can see the roof garden.
You don't say.
The only apartment from which you could take a pot shot at a woman across the way there.
Sit down. Maybe we could both learn canasta.
You always wear a hat when you play cards?
Sure. What woman?
What's it cover up? Black hair to match your sour face?
I said what? We don't like each other much, do we?
Daphne Crockett. I was there when it happened. Now we like each other less, huh?
I don't know. Friendship begins slow sometimes. Sit down, will you? I'll deal out a few.
What do you use for chips? The bag there?
Huh?
The black bag there by your foot. The one you're trying to keep me from seeing.
A real observant boy, aren't you?
Oh, wait a minute. I can see a hand when it starts to move, so stop moving it.
I'm dealing this, Inspector.
Oh, no, you're not. You're...
Too bad nobody can argue with a blackjack, Inspector. we might have had a nice little game.
You know what? Everybody's got the atom bomb.
Oh, Josh, your head hurt.
Shall I tell you what hit you, Valentine?
No. But don't tell me that's Lieutenant Clary's voice, not at last.
At last. Valentine, if you'd wait for the police once in a while, or better yet, if you wouldn't get mixed up in cases like this.
All right. You sound just like Riley. My headache's bad enough.
His name was Curly. Curly Blackson, the strong boy, wanted for ducking out of prison back east.
What was he in for?
He was serving time for shakedowns. He was a blackmail artist.
Blackmail? Hey, is there a little black bag still around here anyway? Never mind, of course.
No, there isn't, George. And this Curly may have been the man Rafe saw once with Daphne, but I don't think he took the shot at her across the way.
He didn't talk like he did.
Not to mention the small fact he had a gun, but it was still loaded and hadn't been fired for some time.
Say, you know an awful lot, don't you, Lieutenant?
Come on, wake up. Open your baby blue eyes wide.
Huh? Oh, I get it. Curly's dead, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I didn't do it.
No. You just slept through it, that's all. First you get mixed up in it, but then when you might be useful, you take a rain check while Curly takes a bullet.
Bullet?
One shot, clean as a whistle, right through the heart, from a short distance.
Yeah. And he was armed. Somebody outdrew him or surprised him. And a marksman, too, huh?
Or a markswoman.
Yeah, where is she?
Where is she? Where do you think she is? Gone, of course. And while we look for her, there was all the time in the world for this to happen. All the time.
Listen, take it easy.
Hey, somebody's coming.
Yeah. And remember, Lieutenant, the girl didn't shoot it herself out there on the roof. And if Curly hit it... Shh, wait a minute.
Keys.
Sure, it's the guy who lives here, R.C. Do you want that?
All right, friend, that's enough music. You can notice us now. Grab him there.
Okay, put down that stick, Buster. That's better.
A little surprised, that's all. If you can let me go, I'm all right.
You're all right.
Sure. Da-da-da-bum, you're breaking my heart. Never leave a tune unfinished. Had to finish it, that's all. Say, didn't expect a room full of roses. Sit down. Roses are in 7th place this week, you know that?
My name's Clary. Homicide.
All right. Sit down.
Sit. Listen, my friend.
Hold on, Lieutenant, just a minute. Roses are number 7, huh? How's Jealous Heart?
A little raise on records, down in sheet sales, though. Oh, but you ought to hear the blues number I've got.
Song plugger, huh? Maybe even the same song plugger who once introduced a cowboy to a girl.
Maybe. I don't know. Play piano down at the Club Paris, too.
The Club Oh, all begins to tie together, doesn't it?
My friend, we're going to pull up our chairs for a nice long talk.
Be careful, don't stub your toe.
What?
Chairs are all nailed down. Keeps the maids from moving them around.
Look, Looney, Daphne Crockett was being watched from here, and I doubt if Curly did it. She was shot at from here, but he didn't do it.
Did it, did it. My name's Seaver, Lieutenant, not Looney. Seaver. Dick Seaver. Dead-Eye Dick, they call me.
Dead-Eye? And Curly was murdered by a Well, brother, if you're crazy enough to
Wait a
admit
minute,
it...
Lieutenant, wait a minute. Chairs nailed down, that stick you carry. You haven't even noticed the body yet. You haven't been watching Daphne, have you, Dead-Eye?
Of course not. I couldn't. I'm blind. Dee-da-dum. Ba-dee-bum-bum-ba-dum. Ba-da-da-da-da-bum.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. How good are you at predicting the weather? Standard of California knows what the weather's going to be like in your area months in advance. They use this knowledge to blend Chevron Supreme gasoline according to the varying climatic conditions in your region throughout the year. Further, Chevron Supreme is climate-tailored according to each different altitude and temperature zone in the West. That's why you can depend on it to get the best out of your car every month in the year, wherever you drive in the 7 western states from Canada to Mexico. Try a tankful of premium quality Chevron Supreme tomorrow. Watch how much better your car responds to its climate-tailored power. Faster starts, faster pickup in traffic, and ping-free power on hills. You'll find you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Ask for Chevron Supreme at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. And now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. Murder by a marksman. Yes, the big dark-haired, sour-faced guy, Curly Blackson, was killed by a single neat shot aimed directly at his heart. The only trouble is it happened in the apartment of a man who was blind, Dick Seaver. Across the way, however, lives a girl who was afraid of Curly, Daphne Crockett, and Daphne can really shoot. But if your name is George Valentine, you also remember that Daphne was once shot at. And while the police go looking for her, you go to see the man who talks as though he'd seen too many of his own movies, Rafe Disbrow.
Gosh, Mr. Valentine, that's all I can say is, gosh.
Well, you should try harder, Mr. Disbrow.
Usually there's just the good men, the bad men.
And the little school teacher in between, I know. Well, this isn't the plot of a Western. But why you really wanted us to meet Daphne, you didn't say. So suppose you start saying, Buster, right now.
Why? I told you she was in distress.
Are you being blackmailed, cowboy?
Uh-huh.
That was Curly's business, you know. And I saw a little black bag once. Blackmailed, I said.
No, not me.
Not you?
Well, I'm always cautious about those things, but... Well, Daphne, she has another suitor besides me, is Mr. Michael J. Martin.
Martin?
Yeah, one of those millionaire fellas. But this is strictly confidential, you understand.
And you figure Martin's a better sucker than you are, huh?
Oh, well, he is a married man, you know, and I've never taken that step.
Uh-huh. And you really hired us to look into Daphne because you were afraid she was going to knock you over, too.
Oh, no, Mr. Valentine. You totally misrepresent me. No, I mean nothing of the kind. The little lady is always innocent.
Okay, Disbrow. When you decide to tell me the truth, let me know, will you?
But I am. I'm just a bystander who...
Or better yet, let the police know. This is still a murder case, Rafe. And they tell me cowboys are pretty good shots.
What? Oh, I'm just a singing cowboy, Miss Brooks.
That's the last straw.
No, I'm not proficient except with a guitar. I don't shoot guns. Well, my fans wouldn't like it. Well, listen, I'll show you.
Come on, Angel. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I'm on records. They play them on the radio night and day. They drive people crazy. I'll show you. Any station. Hey, what's that? Oh, Daphne. Listen, Mr. Valentine. It's a Club Paris broadcast. Daphne shooting at us. There, you see? She didn't run away. She's there. I told you the little lady is always innocent.
Here we are, George. Dressing room number 4, 3, 2.
Sure. She's number 1 with a star on the door.
Just a moment, please. I'm very sorry, but no one's allowed inside.
Well, I'm sorry, too, Shorty, but we want to see...
Miss Crockett isn't receiving any callers this evening. She hopes you understand.
Well, now, that's real thoughtful of her. Just step to one side.
You needn't raise your voice, but if I haven't made myself clear...
Oh, George, just take him up and...
And I really don't feel like arguing about
Shorty,
it.
get out of the way.
Oh, hello, Mr. Valentine. Goodbye.
Oh, no, you don't. Stand still, sister.
Well, I've really got nothing to say. Come along, Mike.
Hey, get out of my way. Shorty, wait a minute, you.
Please don't be difficult, Mr. Valentine. Matt, Fred, Joe.
Slow down, I say. Will you... Hey,
oh,
let
George.
go. Let go, will you?
Bye-bye, Mr. Valentine.
Hey, will you... All right, Mac, Fred, Joe, she's gone. You can let go.
Sure, don't get sore. Let me brush your coat.
The boys, huh?
Stage hands, that's all. Don't want to see you getting in trouble.
Buster, I'm not the one who's going to be in trouble.
Oh, yes, you are. Little guy's important, tough, too.
The what?
Little guy went with her, the Michael J. Martin.
Martin? You mean that little shrimp was Martin?
Lucky we saved you, huh? Lion hunter, you know. Toughest little guy in the world. Best marksman, too. No, Miss Crockett isn't here. Of course she's not here. Don't expect her to show up. I even had one of our own men tailing her, and Martin shook him off, too.
All right, so she's not here. You said that, Lieutenant.
Little schoolteacher type, caught in the middle.
Martin's not much to look at, only 5 feet tall.
$2 million you could look at.
Maybe blackmail does make sense.
I told you that a long time ago. But nothing else means sense. Why did Curly come out here? Why did he get killed?
Oh, stop asking questions.
All right, you want an answer? Curly was Daphne's husband.
What?
It's in the record. They used to be married.
Sure. Now she was afraid of him.
Sure. Let me ask you, what kind of an answer? Does it tie together a cowboy, lion hunter, Annie Oakley? Does it tell which one of those marksmen put a bullet through a man's heart with one shot?
Let's not leave out Seaver. He'd be a nice guy to get caught in the middle, too. I mean, this happened up at his place across the way from Daphne's. People know that, and they know a little black bag still missing.
Yes, George, and Seaver's reputation isn't so good. People might imagine he managed to get his hands on the bag somehow.
All right, so he's tied in. He's a friend of Curly's, too. But let me tell you something.
When we were at the Club Paris, who was playing the piano?
Huh? Well, it was... Oh, George, it wasn't Dick Seaver.
Uh-huh. See what I mean? He's missing, too. And you know, Lieutenant, a blind guy who's a heel could get into trouble easily. Now his heart's beating. Now he's just unconscious, I think. Come on, Seaver. Come on. Snap out of it now.
His door's still open. Somebody must have slugged him when he was running out before he could get away.
Oh, Daddy beat me. My head.
Oh, he's okay. Take a look inside.
That's what I'm doing. It's quite a mess.
It's been ransacked. All the drawers, the only thing still in place is the furniture. Michael J. Martin. Dead.
Would you look at that? Another one-shot victim. Sharpshooting. Even about the same distance.
Yeah. Got Martin a little higher up, though. Yeah, look here. Hit him right in the neck.
So what? He's as dead as Curly, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I'm just...
What is it, George?
The window. Lights just went on there, opposite.
What? Yeah, so they did.
The roof garden.
Little Nell has finally come back home, huh?
And, Lieutenant, if you work a process of elimination...
Come on, let's get over there.
I'll stay here.
But George...
Go on. I'll take care of Seaver here. Now, I'll take you 5 minutes to make it from building to building anyway.
All right, we'll keep our eyes open, but you watch from here.
Don't worry. I've been wrong before. I'm not going to be wrong this time. Get going.
Oh, Daddy, what a head. What's happening? What's happening, Mr. Valentine?
Here. Grant, I'll give you a hand.
Thanks. That's my chair. For the poker table.
Okay, careful now.
There she is. Whew. Sit down yourself, Valentine. It's good for the rocks in your head. From the chair opposite me, the wing chair there, you can see out the window.
Yeah, thanks.
Already there, aren't you? I tell by your voice. What you doing now?
Nothing. Taking off a coat.
Take off your coat. Take off your hat. Cigarette? Got some right here on the table.
No, thanks. Going into the kitchen now.
I bet you can't cook.
You've never seen her, huh?
Nope, blind since I was 21. Lost him in a stick-up I got messed up in.
Stick-up? Nice guy.
I've been around. But I'm straight now.
She's back on the roof now. Why do you say you're straight, Seaver, when you were all mixed up with Curly?
I didn't know he'd taken a hop from prison.
He was up here all the time watching his wife, wasn't he?
Sure. It's a cinch I wasn't.
You were in on the blackmail with Curly, too, weren't you? Somebody must have tipped him off that there was a good touch going, that Martin here was a pushover.
All right, so what? What have I got to lose?
Conspiracy to blackmail, but everybody's dead. You're right, we can't prove it.
I've been around.
You're not.
What's that?
Oh, she's just practicing, that's all. Funny, isn't it? Everybody's a marksman. You know, poor Martin there has a gun in his pocket, too, but he was outdrawn, just like Curly.
That cowboy can shoot, too, Mr. Valentine. I don't believe that stuff he says, do you?
No, I'm not talking about murder anyway. I was thinking about when Daphne over there was practicing early and somebody took a pot shot and missed.
What about it?
Well, that couldn't have been a marksman, could it? So it must have been somebody who just stuck a gun out the window and shot to attract attention.
You've been around, too, haven't you?
You knew somebody'd come running over like I did and find Curly and lock him up. He was a fugitive. Good way to get rid of a partner, huh, Seaver? Well, she's going to work on the clay pigeons now. Good shot.
Never mind her. Then what happened?
Well, it didn't work, obviously. Curly knocked me out instead, so when you ducked back into the room to pick up the dough in the black bag, you found Curly alive and plenty suspicious. So you had to kill him, I guess.
Oh, is that it? Now, how could a blind man do that?
Then maybe later Michael J. Martin figured out who'd been in on the blackmail and came up for a little talk. So you had to kill him.
Well, I guess you can't be blamed. Lots of people think I'm not really blind, but I am, see? Look at the match in front of my eye.
Never mind, skip it. It's because you are blind that I know you killed both of them. Who else but a blind man would shoot two men at the same height? A big man in the heart and a 5-footer like Martin in the neck.
What are you talking about? It killed him, didn't it?
Like a marksman would? No. Just by luck. Oh, you wanted it to look like sharpshooting, using only one bullet. But, of course, you didn't know how short he was. How could you? And who else but a blind man could have outdrawn those two guys? A blind man they never even think of defending themselves against.
Oh, look. Somebody knocked me out and ransacked my place.
Sure, you put on a good act, Seaver. You had to, because we almost got here in time to catch you moving his body.
You're crazy, Mr. Valentine. I'm blind. I don't even know where people are.
You can tell by the sound of a voice, can't you?
What? But not close enough to...
Tell what chair they're sitting in? The chair that's always in the same place because it's nailed down? Well, come on now. Tell me the rest, Buster. What happens? Have you got a gun rest built someplace under the table, maybe? With a gun where you can reach it when you reach for cigarettes? Is that how it works?
Yeah. You'd like to know how it works, wouldn't you? You'd like to know which chair. Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'll show you. It's the chair you're sitting in. Simple, isn't it? The blind man can fool them all. A little heavy on the downbeat, maybe. Won't look like a marksman this time. Ah, but the coroner won't care. I'll just move him out of the chair and... Valentine, where are you? Where are you?
Just where I was, Seaver.
Huh?
Standing by the side of this chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine. I can't tell you how grateful I am for apprehending that barman.
Yeah. He was a little twisted, I guess.
George, we've got to be going.
Oh, no, wait a minute. I asked you out here to explain about her. Oh, boy, she's really nice. She was afraid of her husband, she was, afraid of what he might be up to. And she wasn't really mixed up much with that rich man, Mr. Martin.
Oh, we know, Rafe. You told us. She's a school teacher type. I hope you'll be very happy.
Oh, I'm sure we will, Mr. Valentine.
Well, this is the last reel, Angel. So look out for the cactus while we mount up and ride off into the sunset, leaving the little ranch house behind.
Huh? Well, George, at this point, doesn't the hero usually kiss the girl?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Huh?
He always kisses the horse.
Oh.
When damage shows up inside your car's engine, it's a little late to think of the wear-saving motor oil you might have used. So let me remind you now, it's a fact. RPM motor oil stops 80% of engine wear. That's the wear that happens after you turn off your car's ignition. Acid-laden moisture promptly moves in on cylinder walls, results in corrosion and rust. But it never happens when you rely on RPM motor oil. For this premium quality oil is specially compounded to keep a moisture-proof film on vital parts at all times. Even though your car stands idle for days or weeks, corrosion and rust can't harm it when RPM is in the engine. Better get it tomorrow for the car you love. Remember, RPM motor oil is first choice in the West because it stops 80% of engine wear. Ask for RPM at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. And now, Now, here is Robert Bailey.
Who cares about the crippled lady down the road, neglected and alone? Your neighbor who needs medical attention but can't afford it? You care when you give all you possibly can to your community chest. For the money you give helps pay for visiting nurses, medicine, surgery, helps thousands of people enjoy healthier, happier, more wholesome lives. So give proudly. Enough for all community chest agencies. Enough for a full year.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Leo Cleary as Lieutenant Cleary, John Daner as Rafe, Virginia Gregg as Daphne, Clayton Post as Curly, and Walter Burke as Seaver. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this is one of my absolute favorite Let George Do It stories. When I first heard this was one of the ones that came on a radio archive set of shows that were syndicated in Canada. And the solution to this case totally threw me. So it was a fantastic mystery. I did notice here, listening to it this time, that John Daner as the cowboy really had kind of a whole Gary Cooper type accent when you think about it. It's meant to be evocative of that anyway. And of course, Daner, for old-time radio fans, is best known for playing another cowboy. This one definitely a good shot on the radio version of Have Gun Will Travel, as he starred as Paladin. And by the way, you can take a listen to that at otrwesterns.com. Well, now we turn to listener comments and email. We've got this email from Hasty, who says, thank you for the mobile version of your website. It makes the viewing the site so easy from my phone. Still loving the Android app, too. Well, thanks a lot, Hasty. And actually, because our website's powered by WordPress, we just simply use the WP, if you're webmaster, I encourage you, and you use WordPress, I encourage you, WP Touch makes it so any WordPress blog can be viewed pretty easily on people's mobile phones and devices, because people are searching the internet that way, and they end up with websites that you have to squint to view. And I guess Todd Cochran at the Blueberry Network deserves some credit for making me aware that we needed to have our web pages so they're mobile friendly. So glad you're enjoying that. Well, then we have one comment from Podcast Alley. I've been following the podcast from the beginning, and you have never faltered. Just finished The Dim Night, and I'm happy to let you know that it was a very entertaining read. Thank you for all your hard work. Best to you and yours, Julia. Well, thanks so much, Julia. It's much appreciated. And we will go ahead and we will wrap it up. Remember, today, tomorrow, and Friday only, Tales of the Dim Night, available in the Kindle store for only 99 cents. Well, it's been about a year, but we have another lost episode in Sherlock Holmes, as the episode The Unfortunate Brides is actually not in circulation. And that's worth noting just because after all the Rathbone Bruce episodes that were missing during World War II, from the 1945 to 46 season through the 48 to 49 season, only 2 of the 176 episodes are missing. Unfortunately, The Unfortunate Brides was one of them. But we're going to get into today's episode in just a moment. This one comes from January 27th of 47. Before we do, I do want to remind you that our Tales of the Dim Night April Fool's ebook sale is still on. 99 cents for those of you who have the Kindle. Or if you know somebody who has the Kindle, you can also gift them a copy. That is on through April 1st. Go to dimnight.com or purchase off of Amazon, dimnight.com if you've got some other ebook reader other than the Kindle. But let's get into today's episode, The Babbling Butler.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Well, once again, it's time to keep that weekly appointment with our good friend and host, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell. Draw up your chair and settle down.
Thank you.
That's it.
All ready with tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure, Dr.
Yes,
Watson?
Mr. Bell. And as I was going over my notes on the case, I came across this. I think it might interest you.
What is it? It looks like an ordinary piece of clay.
It is clay, but I assure you it's very far from ordinary. This piece of dried earth enabled Sherlock Holmes to solve one of the most diabolical murders that we ever encountered. I call the case The Singular Affair of the Babbling Butler.
I can hardly wait to hear the story.
I'm sure that you'll wait long enough to have a word with our listeners now, won't you, Mr. Bell?
Yes, Dr. Watson, but it won't take me a moment. In a recent poll, women picked the 10 best-dressed men in America. These men were all men at the top: statesmen, governors, movie stars, producers, and millionaires. And I know you'll be interested in hearing how a recent survey showed that Kreml Hair Tonic is preferred among America's top-flight executives and most successful men. But why shouldn't Kreml be? Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This is why Kreml gives a man's hair such a natural, well-groomed look, such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. Kreml also keeps hair neatly in place longer, with an attractive, healthy-looking luster. Yet it never leaves hair looking or feeling greasy, sticky, or dirty. After you apply Kreml, you can rub your hand over your hair, and your hair feels so delightfully clean. Notice how no greasy film comes off on your hand or on your hatband. Just use a little Kreml in the morning, and at night your hair looks as neatly groomed as when you combed it in the morning. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the singular affair of the Babbling Butler?
Well, that adventure began on a November evening many years ago. For 4 days, a dense yellow fog had virtually marooned Holmes and me in our Baker Street lodgings. The first day, the great man had spent in cross-indexing his huge book of references. The second and third had been patiently occupied upon a subject which he had recently made his hobby, the music of the Middle Ages. But when on the 4th day we still saw the heavy brown swirl drifting past us and condensing in oily drops upon the window panes, my old friend's active and impatient nature began to assert itself. He started to pace restlessly about our room in a fever of suppressed energy.
Confound this fog.
Oh, do stop pacing up and down, Holmes. No good getting angry with the weather. That's one problem even you can't do anything about.
It isn't the weather, Watson. It's the infernal dullness of the London criminal these days. Come over here to the window.
Oh, what is it, Holmes?
Look out there. See how the figures loom up, are dimly seen, and then blend once more into the fog. What a night for a thief or a murderer, Watson. He could roam London as a tiger does the jungle, unseen until he pounces. It's fortunate for this community that I'm not a criminal.
Yes, it is indeed.
Suppose that I were Brooks, or Woodhouse, or any of the 50 men who have good reason for taking my life. How long could I survive against my own pursuit? A summons, a bogus appointment, and all would be over.
What a depressing thought.
The only thing that depresses me is inactivity. Why doesn't something happen? Why doesn't someone come to me with a problem?
It sounds as if your prayer's been answered.
I hope so. See who it is, Watson, will you? It'll save Mrs. Hudson a trip.
Yes, of course. All right, Mrs. Hudson. Ask the gentleman to come up, please. This way up, sir. You wish to see Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
Yes, sir, I do.
Then come along in. My name's Watson, Dr. Watson, and this is Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, how do you do, Mr. Holmes? Dr. Watson. My name is Jenkins. I'm butler to Sir Roderick Martin.
Sir Roderick Martin? Indeed. Sit down, Jenkins.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Sir Roderick Martin, isn't he the theatrical producer?
Yes, Watson. And he is quite famous in his own circle for his cynicism and a certain mordant wit. Your master needs my services, I presume, Jenkins?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, he does. He's in desperate trouble, and he'd like you to come over to his house at once.
Well, what kind of trouble is he in?
Oh, please don't ask any questions, sir. Just come to the house and see for yourselves.
I've long wanted to meet Sir Roderick. I believe it was he who gave currency to that pun. Though he might be more humble, there's no police like Holmes.
That's all funny. No police like Holmes.
I'm glad it amuses you, Watson.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I implore you to come with. Please, gentlemen, come with me.
Whatever your master's problems may be, I think I would enjoy a discussion with him. Perhaps on the topic of humility. Yes, Jenkins, we'll accompany you at once.
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, sir.
How do you do, Sir Roderick?
How do you do?
Jenkins. Oh, how very odd. Now, why should Jenkins make such a meteoric exit?
I presume, Sir Roderick, he wished to leave us alone.
Indeed, what a singularly depressing thought.
Well, sir, now that he's gone, you can talk quite freely.
My dear Dr. Watson, I've been in the habit of talking freely ever since I had the pleasure of insulting my nurse at the age of 4. She was a peculiarly revolting female by the name of Pearl. After 44 years, I still can't think of a more inappropriate name for her.
Sir Roderick, your childhood reminiscences are fascinating. But supposing we get down to business.
Very well, Holmes. To what do I owe well, for lack of a better word, the pleasure of this visit?
Your butler came to fetch us.
He said that you were in desperate trouble and needed our help.
Jenkins told you that? I can only assume that he stole more than his usual quota of brandy today. I've noticed in the past that alcohol seems to give him the quaintest delusions.
Then you don't wish to consult me professionally?
No, Holmes, I don't, nor do I wish the services of a doctor. Therefore, I suggest you both retire and ask Jenkins for your hats and an explanation. Good evening, gentlemen.
It's one of his stupid jokes, Holmes. The bounder's trying to make a fool of you.
I think not, Watson. It'd be a singularly pointless joke, and far below his standard. No, I believe there's some other game afoot. Though Sir Roderick dismissed us somewhat unceremoniously, I think we may still be reasonably certain of a welcome in the servants' quarters.
You're going to talk to the butler?
Yes, Watson. I'm certain he's neither been drinking nor suffering from delusions. I'm convinced that the man is in mortal terror of his life.
Oh, thank heavens you came to see me, Mr. Holmes.
Well, how could we resist it when Sir Roderick told us that your entire story was a lie?
Oh, you must forgive me, gentlemen. I was desperate with fear, and I had to attract your attention.
But why? You've accomplished your purpose now. You've thoroughly roused my curiosity. But I repeat, why?
Because I'm in terror of my life, sir. Someone's trying to murder me.
Oh, what reason have you for saying that, Jenkins?
Last night an attempt was made to kill me.
Oh? Please describe the circumstances.
Well, sir, I was carrying a keg of wine down into the cellar. It slipped from my arms and hit the stairs, and then the stairs collapsed. When I examined them, I found that they'd been sawed almost through.
I assume that you're the only member of the household who ever visits the wine cellar?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was a deliberate trap to break my neck. Oh, if I'd stepped down, it would have been the end of me. Oh, Mr. Holmes, I'm only a servant. I couldn't pay you much.
Now, my dear Jenkins, I assure you that Mr. Holmes is as interested in preventing the murder of a servant as he is in saving the life of a prime minister.
Jenkins, have you any idea who might want to kill you?
There's only one person on earth with a motive for killing me, sir. And that's my master.
Sir Roderick Martin. Oh, come, my dear man. You're surely mistaken.
What reason do you have for suspecting him?
Well, it's this way, Mr. Holmes. A year ago, a certain lady killed herself when Sir Roderick jilted her. Well, the affair was all hushed up, and nobody knew Sir Roderick was even involved. But her brother swore to avenge her death. That brother is a very close friend of Sir Roderick's. but has never suspected him.
Complicated situation, eh, Holmes?
Yes, Watson. I take it, Jenkins, you are the only person who knows that your master was guilty?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And if I were dead, his secret would be safe. Oh, Mr. Holmes, please, what can I do? I know he's planning my death. You've got to save me, sir.
Jenkins, my advice is this. Write a full statement of the circumstances in this case. Sign and seal it and hand it over to me for safekeeping. Inform your master that if anything happens to you, I shall make public the contents of the statement.
That's a very good idea, Holmes.
I'll do that, sir. I'll do that. I'll bring it to you in the morning.
Splendid. Come on, Watson. Oh, by the way, Jenkins, what's the name of your doctor?
My doctor, sir? I never said...
You never said what?
Oh, yeah, doctor. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dr. David Stanley in Wimpole Street.
Dr. David Stanley. I see. Well, good night, Jenkins. We shall expect you in the morning.
But why are we going to see Dr. Stanley?
Firstly, because I want his physician's opinion as to whether Jenkins might be suffering from hysterical delusions.
Well, as a doctor myself, I say that's more likely. I must say his actions tonight hardly seem the behavior of a sane man.
When a man is badly frightened, Watson, it's sometimes hard to judge his actions by more rational standards. Incidentally, did you notice the way he started when I asked him the name of his doctor? Almost certainly Dr. David Stanley is the vengeful killer.
By George, now that you mention it, I do remember hearing some gossip in Harley Street about Stanley's sister killing herself. But nobody seemed to know the motive.
Here's the house, Watson.
Well, let's hope the doctor's at home.
If he isn't, we haven't come very far out of our way.
Want me to wait for you, Governor?
No, thank you, cabby. Here you are.
Ah, thank you, Governor. Giddy up.
I can hear a piano playing. Someone is at home.
That seems an eminently logical deduction.
There's no need to be funny, Holmes.
Good evening.
My name is Sherlock Holmes, and this is my colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do? I'm Mrs. Stanley.
We wondered if we might have a few words with your husband.
With David? Well, come in, won't you, gentlemen? Mr. Holmes, you're a detective, aren't you?
Yes, Mrs. Stanley.
I hope you haven't come here to talk to David about his sister's death.
Not directly, madam. Though my mission is not unconnected with that tragedy.
Then I can't let you see.
Well, really, Mrs. Stanley, my friend only wishes
No, gentlemen. For the sake of his sanity, I daren't let you talk to him. Ever since his sister died, he's been like a soul tormented. Spends most of his time in there playing those frightening compositions of his on the piano. I can't let him be subjected to any more questioning about his sister. Even I daren't mention her.
Sylvia, I've heard voices. Who are these gentlemen?
It's Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, dear.
How do you do, Dr. Stanley?
I hope we're not intruding, sir.
The great Sherlock Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson intruding? Well, of course not. I'm flattered. Come in, gentlemen.
Please don't say anything about his sister's death.
Don't worry, Mrs. Stanley. We won't.
No, of course not.
Holmes, I believe you're something of a musician. I'd like your opinion of this.
David, dear, they haven't come here to listen to music.
I don't care what they came here for. This is what they're going to hear. Well, how'd you like it?
A strange, savage melody, Dr. Stanley.
Yes, indeed, sir. Rather depressing, if you don't mind my saying so.
No, why shouldn't it be? When it's finished, I call it Threnody for a Dead Sister. That's what you've come to see me about, isn't it, Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
No, David, dear, you mustn't...
Sylvia, I should prefer that you leave us alone.
But, David...
I said alone, Sylvia.
Very well.
Sylvia's a girl who can't face up to facts. But I can. Tell me, Holmes, what have you found out about my sister's death?
Dr. Stanley, I'm afraid you're laboring under misapprehension. I know nothing of your sister. I came here to talk about Jenkins, Sir Roderick Martin's butler.
He told us that you were his physician.
Oh, Jenkins, eh? What do you want to know about him?
Has he been ill recently?
Well, a few months ago, he had a bad attack of enteric fever. Why'd you ask?
Enteric sometimes leaves bad after effects. Would you say, Doctor, that Jenkins has suffered no lasting damage? Hallucinations, for instance?
No, at the time he was out of his head for a while, but I'd say he's perfectly sound now. Thank you, Dr. Stanley. That's all we wanted to know.
You mean to say that you came here simply to find out about the state of Jenkins' sanity?
Just that, sir. Good evening.
Good night, Dr. Stanley.
I think you had something else on your mind before you talked to Sylvia.
Jenkins may be sane, but that man's on the edge of a mental collapse, if I ever saw one.
I quite agree, Watson. Mrs. Stanley seems to have gone upstairs. I think we'll let ourselves out.
Well, Holmes, that was rather a fruitless trip. We didn't learn much there, except that Jenkins is compos mentis.
I disagree, old chap. We learned a great deal more than that. Tomorrow morning I shall lose no time in calling on Sir Roderick again.
That horrible fellow? For heaven's sake, why?
Because he's the focal point in a grim tragedy. Inevitably, either he will kill Jenkins, or Dr. Stanley will kill him.
My dear Holmes, I'm accustomed to facing 2 brown eggs at breakfast. 2 brown eggs lightly boiled, followed by a leisurely perusal of the Times. I see no reason why this day should commence any differently.
Sir Roderick, I've explained to you
You've
that...
explained nothing, including your own presumption, Holmes. I can see no cause for your meddling, even if I understood precisely what you were driving at, which I don't.
Well, surely, Sir Roderick, you must see that my friend is trying to protect you.
Dr. Watson, I once had the acute misfortune to read one of your shockingly florid stories.
What?
I can only assume that your gross imagination has infected your daily life.
Since your own safety seems to be a matter of indifference to you, Sir Roderick, I may point out that I know too much if you plan on being a danger yourself.
Holmes, you're impertinent, a quality which is attractive only in a younger person, and of a different sex. What is even more unpardonable, you're boring. Please leave and take this bumbling veterinary surgeon with you.
It's extremely offensive.
Before I leave, I insist on knowing one thing. Where is your butler, Jenkins? A new man opened the door just now.
Jenkins? Oh, yes. I omitted to tell you. Jenkins has left my service.
You discharged him, I suppose?
Not exactly, though it is my invariable rule to discharge any servant found guilty of a crime.
A crime? And what was Jenkins' crime?
He committed suicide. In just a moment, we shall hear more about this ironic crime of suicide. But first, men, nice-looking, attractive hair means so much to a man's appearance. And one of the first requisites of handsome, healthy-looking hair is a hygienic scalp. So start at once. Take better care of the hair you've got. Change to Kreml Hair Tonic. No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly in place without looking or feeling greasy. But men, Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Its light oils have a fine lubricating effect on a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff. Notice how alive, how invigorated your scalp feels. And men, you like to massage Kreml on your scalp because it's such a clean hair tonic. Never feels greasy or sticky. And if your hair is so dry that it breaks and falls when you comb it, Kreml actually helps condition the hair, in that it makes it feel softer, more pliable, and look as if it had some body to it. So men, for handsome groomed hair and a more hygienic scalp, use Kreml daily. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drugstore. Ask for an application at your barber's. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. That famous modern hair tonic preferred among America's most successful men. Well, Dr. Watson, this story really has me on the edge of my chair. So the butler Jenkins had committed suicide?
Well, that's what Sir Roderick told us, Mr. Bell, although we had great difficulty in persuading him to let us examine the dead man's room. Finally, after Sherlock Holmes had pointed out that if we couldn't handle the case, and Scotland Yard certainly would, we were allowed to visit that room of death. The evidence of suicide was apparent. After a brief examination, Holmes turned to me and said,
"What do you make of it, Watson?"
"Obvious signs of strychnine poisoning, Holmes. Quite clearly a suicide."
"Yes. The other servants told us that they had to break the door down to get in. It was locked and bolted from the inside.
And your examination proved that there was no sign of the lock having been tampered with.
Precisely. And he drank the poison from this glass here by the bed. Yes, I'd say that there's been nothing in this glass but strychnine and water. Hello. What's this on the carpet?
Looks like a piece of clay.
It is. And it bears the imprint of a heel.
From a man's boot. Look at the size.
And observe the color of the clay, Watson. This particular specimen is quite rare. I shall take it back to Baker Street and examine it.
I can't see any logic in this case, Holmes. After all, people terrified of murder don't go committing suicide.
Patience, old fellow. I'm convinced that this is one case where an hour in the laboratory may aid the solution more than all the logic in the world.
Well, Holmes, what do your tests with the microscope tell you?
First of all, that the glass contained nothing but strychnine and water.
Well, nobody could drink that without knowing it. That proves that it was suicide.
Not necessarily, Watson. I've also tested the clay. In addition to being a very rare clay, it's oddly impregnated with certain acids and chemicals, exactly as it might be if a doctor picked it up on his heel outside his house and later went into his laboratory.
A doctor? That would explain the poison.
Exactly. Jenkins was under his doctor's care. Supposing the physician prescribed a draught to be taken on retiring, why question its peculiarly bitter taste? Jenkins was a frightened man. Undoubtedly, he bolted and locked his door last night and then, trustingly, drank the fatal poison.
All of which points to Dr. Stanley.
Quite.
But I don't understand it. He had a motive for murdering Sir Roderick, and Sir Roderick had a motive for murdering Jenkins. But all the evidence points to the fact that Dr. Stanley murdered Jenkins. It doesn't make any sense.
But it does, Watson. Precise, accurate, and terrifying sense. We must return to Sir Roderick's house at once. There's not a moment to be lost.
Holmes, you and your friend here are positively pachydermatous. Twice I've told you to mind your own business, and yet you come back for more insults. Am I to assume that you find my personal charm so utterly irresistible?
On the contrary, sir, you can assume that your personal charm utterly escapes us.
Sir Roderick, the only reason we've returned is because I'm convinced you're in grave danger.
As I told you before, Holmes, I'm eminently capable of taking care of myself. In any case, I'm expecting Dr. Stanley, my physician, here in a few minutes.
Sir Roderick, by all you hold sacred...
I hold nothing sacred, Holmes, save human life. By which, of course, I mean my own.
Then, for the sake of your own life, sir, allow us to slip behind that tapestry while your doctor visits you.
Behind the arras, eh? The proper place for rats, if I remember my Hamlet correctly. Oh, that's undoubtedly the doctor now.
Then please let us hide. You won't regret it, I promise you.
Very well, you may hide. Scurry away.
Come on, Watson.
Right, you are, Holmes.
Come in.
Roderick, I had to see you.
Yes, so it would appear. Sylvia, if you have to come making dramatic entrances in my house at an hour that virtually represents the crack of dawn, I do wish you'd take a little more pains with your ensemble.
Roderick,
Your dress is only suitable for tea and crumpets with the vicar's wife at Tooting Bec.
Oh, Roderick, stop trying to be facetious. I came here because I had to talk to you before David got here.
Well, I'm expecting him at any moment.
Yes, I know that. You're his closest friend, Roderick. You've got to do something for him. He's ill. He's mentally unbalanced. All he thinks about and talks about and dreams about is Angela. He's even composed a horrible piece of music that he calls...
Sylvia!
David!
What are you doing here?
Everyone's being extraordinarily melodramatic this morning. It's a pity, David, but you have not caught your wife and me in a compromising situation. Chiefly, I admit, because I find her somewhat colorless.
Roderick, how dare you?
I suggest that you leave us, my dear.
You!
I believe the word you're groping for is beast.
You beast!
Roderick, you put up a convincing caricature of being the inhuman man of the world. But if people only knew how you'd stood by me during the past year...
No, David. This has been a most emotional morning. For heaven's sake, don't you become lachrymose.
I'm not. I'm just saying that if you hadn't stood by me since Angela's death, I don't know what I'd have done.
You'd probably been back on your feet long before this, but you came here this morning in your professional capacity, David.
Yes, I know, Roderick. How are you feeling?
don't like your color.
I don't like my symptoms. I can't sleep. My nerves have been more than usually on edge for the past 3 weeks, David. You promised me some medicine, you know.
I brought it with me. It's in my bag here. You have a glass and some water?
Yes, on the sideboard there.
Good. Well, this will steady you up quite a bit. Now I'll add a little water. So, here you are, Roderick. Drink this.
I wouldn't, Sir Roderick. It won't do much good to the only thing you hold sacred.
Sherlock Holmes, what are you doing here?
Your opening conversation begins to become somewhat monotonous, Dr. Stanley. I'm here because I don't like to see murder committed, even Sir Roderick's.
You mean that Dr. Stanley just tried to poison him?
Certainly. Just as he poisoned the butler, Jenkins.
Mr. Holmes,
he has
really,
no motive.
I tried to protect Jenkins against Sir Roderick. I was stupid enough not to see the other motive at first.
Riddles are fascinating, Holmes, but not when they become personal. What are you talking about?
It's a simple equation, Sir Roderick. Dr. Stanley attended Jenkins during his bout of enteric. He told us himself that the butler was delirious. It was then that he must have learned Jenkins' secret, that Jenkins was the only human being who knew that Sir Roderick was responsible for Angela's suicide. Logically, he had to die first.
But I still don't see that...
Dr. Stanley does, despite his silence. Jenkins was the only human being who knew that Dr. Stanley had a motive for killing Sir Roderick.
This is very melodramatic, Holmes, but I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about.
Nor have I, except that you seem to be laboring under the delusion that I killed Jenkins.
Of course you did. You had to, before you could kill Sir Roderick. Had Jenkins lived, he would have been suspicious of his master's death. But if he were out of the way, no one would have connected Sir Roderick's close friend and physician with his murder. The cellar stairs attempt failed. But last night's poison did not.
And now he's trying to repeat the pattern. The glass over there contains strychnine and water.
Of course it does.
I assure you, this medicine is perfectly harmless. To prove it, I shall drink it myself.
Stop him, Watson.
Put that down. Put it down, I say. It's too late.
That was meant for you, Roderick. It was too good for you. Considering the way you treated my sister Angela.
He's dead, Holmes.
Yes. And you, Sir Roderick, have escaped a brother's vengeance. I'm almost sorry that I insisted on trying to save your wretched life.
Well, just because you have saved it, don't expect anything as conventional as thanks or remorse. My only regret is that during the past few minutes you've enjoyed an experience granted to very few men on this earth.
And what is that, may I ask?
You have seen me speechless.
In just a moment, Dr. Watson will be back to tell us about next week's story. Ladies, here's some very important beauty advice from some of the world's most divinely beautiful women, Powers models. Girls who are famous for their shining, bright, lustrous hair.
Powers models wash their hair with Kreml shampoo. This amazingly beautifying shampoo has been especially developed to actually glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. Kreml shampoo leaves the hair simply abundant with natural glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays this way for days.
And doesn't Kreml shampoo do a wonderful cleaning job on your scalp? Removes all loose dandruff as well as the dirt.
Yes, and it's wonderful to soften dry, brittle ends. Kreml shampoo leaves your hair so much softer, silkier, with a satin smoothness. Your hair holds a wave better, too.
So, ladies, buy a bottle of glamorizing Kreml shampoo at any drug counter and see how easy it is to glamour bathe your hair to a vision of beauty. How easy it is now to have naturally lustrous, glossy hair. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, I think I'll tell you about the greatest shock that Sherlock Holmes ever gave me.
Well, that must have been quite a shock, Dr. Watson.
It was, Mr. Bell. I call it The Adventure of the Dying Detective.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Bruce Partington Plans. The music was composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures, Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the dying detective. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, I have to say, the writers of this season of Sherlock Holmes love singular affairs. In 16 episodes, 4 have been singular affairs. The singular affair of the White Cockerel, the singular affair of the Coptic Compass, and the singular affair of the dying schoolboys. And most of the Sherlock Holmes stories were just called The Adventures of This or That. This was pretty interesting, and the playwright was one of the most, I guess, likable, unlikable characters that we've seen portrayed here, particularly in the Sherlock Holmes series. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. In just a second, I want to let you know about something I found. It's a site called AmericanRadioTheater.org. And what they do is they do recreation of old-time radio programs, many of which are lost, as well as writing and performing their own scripts based on the original stories. And it's a pretty interesting site. It's American Radio Theater, theater spelled with an ER.org. They've got episodes of Johnny Dollar, Sam Spade, The Great Gildersleeve. Great little project that they've got going there, so I thought I'd let you know about that. Well, we do have this comment from Chris. Seriously, regarding the sponsor of the program. Seriously, they went from a wine to a hair product as sponsor of Sherlock Holmes. I know it's been a while now, but I wish they had not done that. I really miss the wine commercials because they take the time to bring me good wine. I don't suppose you could jump in your DeLorean and have the wine company continue sponsorship. When I first started hearing the hair commercials, I thought it would be an okay change, but I was not thrilled. Now I just find them annoying. They seem so fake when they are dropped into conversation with Watson. The wine commercials made sense. And I made a high and tight haircut. Hair tonic does not apply to me. However, wine greatly applies. Adam, this is not a critique of the job you do. Please believe that. The hard work you put in the show is very evident. I still listen to Sherlock Holmes, even with the hair tonic commercials. I just have no one else to vent on this issue, so you became my sounding board, whether you want it or not. Keep up the good work, Adam. Well, thanks so much for the comment. The decision to switch from Petri wine was almost certainly that of Petri wine, because Basil Rathbone left the program, and the program moved from Mutual, which at this time was probably the top mystery and drama network out there, to ABC, which didn't have a great reputation when compared to the other giants in the golden era of radio. So less sponsors, less prestige, less listeners. In terms of why Kreml did it, I've often thought that the reason Kreml sponsored it is they figured that the show had hair-raising tales. Okay, hope nobody unsubscribes over that pun there. But thanks for the comment. Well, we have a comment from THDPR, a review on iTunes. This is my favorite podcast. I've tried to find a reliable podcast with old-time radio Sherlock Holmes episodes, but never found a good one until now. And before, I was a bit of a snob, only listening to the Sherlock Holmes episode, until I caught a Thin Man and realized that my love of Sherlock aside, I really love old-time radio. I enjoy Nero, Thin Man, Johnny Dollar, George Valentine, and the Abbotts. Hoping for some Poirot soon. And indeed, we will have the old-time radio version of Poirot coming up in the future. Stay tuned for the actual announcement of when, though. My father remarked that this is the stuff his parents used to try to get him to listen to when he was a kid, and here I am listening for fun. Thanks, Adam, and thank you for your kind comments. I was kind of the way you were with Sherlock Holmes with Dragnet. That was probably the only OTR I listened to right up until 2009, right before I started Great Detectives. But I appreciate everybody listening, whether you're listening to one or all 5. Though I encourage you to sample some of our other wares. particularly if you're just listening to one or two shows, particularly let George do it. Yesterday's mystery, of course, was just absolutely phenomenal. Well, that'll about do it. I do have an announcement fitting for this show. On Sunday, we'll be back with our 15th episode of Video Theater. And this month's Video Theater for April is going to be another great episode of the 1954-55 Sherlock Holmes TV series. This month's episode guest stars Academy Award nominee Paulette Goddard in a wonderful Sherlock Holmes mystery. I'm sure you will enjoy if you watch the Video Theater episodes. I have no sort of parental caution about the episode, so just enjoy. Well, we'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And this month, I would like you, if you've got a favorite show of the 5 shows we're doing, mention it in your comment on Podcast Alley, and we'll keep track of the totals and announce the winners or the favorite show by the end of the month. That's podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And you can always give us a call, 208-991-4783. I'd like to remind you today is the last day of our special 99-cent Kindle sale for copies of Tales of the Dim Night. Encourage you to check those out and help us to climb up the bestseller list at Amazon. It's at dimnight.com for more details. Well, today we're going to hear an episode where, if you've been listening to us for any length of time, will sound familiar, because we played an episode called The Mickey McQueen Manor in October. And that is the title of today's episode, and the plot is much the same. However, it's not a rerun by me, or actually by the original, yours truly, Johnny Dollar. There were several scripts that were recreated after their initial airing. There's the Yankee Pride matter, the Jackie Cleaver matter, the Mickey McQueen matter, and the Montevideo matter, with Yankee Pride and Montevideo each being done 3 times. But each performance is a fresh one. It's been 22 weeks since we've heard this, so I didn't remember the solution myself, so I hope you enjoy it like the first time. It's the Mickey McQueen matter here on the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
Mickey McQueen, Johnny. How are you?
Mickey? I tried to phone you a couple of times, but I never reached you.
And I'm out a lot these days.
Well, I heard about your promotion to sergeant, Mickey. Nice going.
That isn't good. They're taking my beat away from me and putting me behind the desk. I've got to talk to a friend about it. Will you be home tonight?
Well, you really sound worried, Mickey. What is it?
Nothing yet, Johnny, but there'll be murder before it's finished. My mind's made up. I want to talk to you about it.
Sure, Mickey. I'll be here any time you want to come up.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, to whom it may concern, Hartford Police Headquarters, Hartford, Connecticut. I don't expect you to honor this statement, but since the reports to my regular employers go in on these forms, the following is an accounting of my expenditures during my personal investigation of the Mickey McQueen matter. You may wonder how I got mixed up in it. Well, it's been my privilege to have worked a number of cases with Mickey McQueen here in Hartford, and through the years, a friendship developed between us. So when he phoned Tuesday night, saying he wanted to talk to me, I was glad to ask him up. But when it got to be 1:30 in the morning and he still hadn't arrived, I wasn't so glad. He arrived at 2.
I'm sorry I'm late, Johnny.
Yeah, what held you up? I was about to drop off.
I had to think, Johnny.
You're in uniform, Mickey. What about your beat?
Yeah, my beat won't miss me. After 20 years of walking it from dark till dawn, checking its doors and passing the time of night with its people, drunk and sober.
Is it too late for a drink, Mickey? I got your brand, some Irish.
Yes, that was good of you. I've been a good policeman, Johnny. I can say that without sounding like I'm stuck on myself, can't I now?
Oh, I've never heard anybody else say anything else, Mickey.
And I've got more friends to my credit than I have arrests. I'll say that. But I've got a quiet beat.
I think there are quieter beats in town. Maybe you're lucky. Here's to it.
All right. But be careful what it is. There's murder being done and planned right this minute, Johnny, and them that could stop it don't have the heart, right or wrong.
What are you talking about?
I know what I'm talking about.
Are you feeling all right?
Feeling all right? I'm as healthy as I was yesterday, ain't I now?
I didn't see you yesterday.
Yet they're taking my job, putting me behind a desk. A degrading end for a man that's been active for 20 years.
After 20 years on your feet, you should take a rest. You've earned one.
The very words of the commission, Johnny. But, Johnny,
Yeah, Mickey?
Never mind. The devil take them all. I've used up enough of your time.
Now, wait a minute. You came over to talk about something more than your new job. What's this stuff about murder being planned and being done?
I shouldn't have said it. I wish you'd forget it.
What's the matter with you? You know me well enough to tell me. You know me well enough to know I'll keep any confidence you want me to keep.
You're a good friend, Johnny. Maybe that's why I've changed my mind about telling you.
Then why did you come over?
Because I thought I was going to talk to you, but I'm not now.
All right, it's your business. But you're acting like a kid. Now, if you don't have anything to say to me, it's after 2. I have a job in the morning.
All right, Johnny. I'm sorry I bothered you. I'll say good night.
I didn't sleep very well for the rest of the night. In sort of a half doze, parts of Mickey's conversation kept coming back to me. And the more sleep I lost over it, the more I wished I had been less grumpy and more sympathetic. There wasn't a job for me the next day, and right after noon I decided to drop by his apartment and find out his mood when he was off duty. Mickey's apartment occupied the ground floor of a narrow gray row house not far from mine. I could hear a woman crying somewhere inside. I smelled domestic trouble, but I pushed the buzzer anyway.
Are you the...
I'm Johnny Dollar, a friend of Mr. McQueen's.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Dollar. He said to phone you if I ever needed.
Is he home?
In there.
She pointed in the direction of a door smaller than the outside door, the door to either a bathroom or a closet. It was a closet. The clothes were bunched at one end of the rod, and from the other, still in uniform, his own polished leather belt drawn tightly around his neck, hung Mickey McQueen. I walked back into the lace-curtained living room. The woman who had let me in was in her middle 30s. She wore too much makeup, and her white blonde hair was anything but natural. She had stopped crying, and she acted as if she were waiting for me to start something.
Well, what about it? You explain yourself, or do I get 3 guesses? Never mind that look. I only live here.
Oh? I didn't know Mickey had a wife.
Oh, maybe he was ashamed of me. My name is Thelma.
Sorry, Thelma.
You're an old friend of Mickey's?
Yeah, but he never told me about you.
Had you seen him lately?
Yeah, last night. First he phoned me, then he came by to talk to me.
What did he say?
I'm not sure. He was pretty handy with double talk. Maybe I was supposed to understand it, but I didn't.
What was it about?
About his job, change he was making, and something about murders being planned and done, and nobody doing anything to stop them.
Then he didn't tell you.
What?
That I was leaving him.
He's never mentioned you. Why were you leaving him?
Well, because it was all wrong. I never should have married him in the first place.
Why did you?
Because he was the kindest, most wonderful man that ever lived. Does that answer your question?
Not quite. Is there more?
Did you know his first wife?
Yeah.
Well, then I guess you know he took her death pretty hard. They'd been married 10 years. I met him after she died. He was lonely, and so was I. Well, he was pretty wonderful to me. I thought I could help him. It wasn't because of him I was leaving. It was me. But I never thought he'd do this.
I don't think he did.
What do you mean?
I think he was murdered.
Why?
When did you find him?
Oh, I came home about a half hour before you got here.
Have you phoned the police?
Not yet. I didn't know what to do.
Where'd you been?
I told you I was leaving him. I've been living in a hotel. Does it matter?
Well, why'd you come back?
Oh, just to get some things I'd left. Why are you asking me these things?
When it's murder, there's bound to be a lot of questions.
I don't think it was. Everybody loved him. He didn't have an enemy in the world. Why would anybody want to kill a man like Mickey McQueen?
For the rest of the day, I tried to talk myself into leaving the matter in the hands of the police where it belonged, but I couldn't do it. That night, I started making the rounds of Mickey's beat. I talked to a corner magazine vendor who had sold him a mystery, a woman in a cigar store who had talked with him, and a cabbie who had borrowed $5 from him. None of them gave me anything helpful. My next stop was the Cedric Hotel, where I looked up the house detective, Ned Martin.
Oh, poor old Mickey. I'll miss him.
So will I. Did you see him last night?
Yeah, he dropped in. He always did, once or twice a night, just to shoot the breeze, you know. Why'd he do it? Did he leave a note or anything?
I think he was murdered.
What makes you say that?
Came over to see me about 2:30 this morning. There was something on his mind. He wanted to talk about it, but he wouldn't.
Yeah, that figures.
What do you mean?
I noticed something about him last night. He was real low. I asked him what was the matter. He said it was because it was his last night on his beat. He was supposed to check into his new job today. But that didn't sound right to me.
Did you know he had a wife?
Yeah, I heard about it. Then I hounded him till he showed me a picture of her.
Bleached blonde?
Yeah, she looks it. I didn't want to embarrass him by asking, but I wondered about her. What makes you think it was murder, Don?
Now, do you think Mickey was the type to kill himself?
Well, no, but how can you tell?
I guess you can't. All you can do is try to find out. Well, if you don't have anything more, I'll be on my way.
Wait a minute.
Huh?
I guess it was a dirty trick, and I wish I hadn't done it, but I snooped that marriage. I found out who she was. Her name was Thelma Weaver. She did a couple of years at Joliet.
Where'd you get that?
Things like that don't stay hidden. I'd drop it if I were you. I really would.
What are you holding out on me?
It's for your own good, Johnny.
I'll shake it out of you if I have to.
Okay, hero. You know Fred Koo, the Calcutta Club over in Bartlett?
I know of him. He's a police informer, isn't he?
They're part-time.
Uh-huh.
If you won't take my advice and forget it, go talk to him. And don't tell him who sent you.
What do you want?
I want to talk to you about Mickey McQueen. Do you have an office?
You a cop, too?
Only a private one. I was a friend of Mickey's.
Oh, sure. Roy.
Yes?
I'm in my office for a little while. If there's any trouble, buzz me.
Roger, Fred.
Come on, this way.
Got quite a crowd tonight, Fred.
Sure, sometimes I get a lot of out-of-town trade.
Did you see Mickey last night?
No, I didn't. I get along fine with Mickey. He won't take any payoff, but he don't push me around. How is he?
You know his wife?
His wife? I didn't even know he was married.
Her name was Thelma Weaver before Mickey married her. She did some time in Joliet.
Why do you bother me with this? I got work to do.
You knew Mickey was dead.
No, I didn't know that.
I don't see how it would be enough, but it struck me that if somebody knew he was married to an ex-con, they might try to use the information.
I suppose you're right. Yeah?
Right, Fred. I think you'd better come out.
Important?
Yes, I think so.
Be right out. Pardon me, Dollar. A little trouble outside. Wait here. I'll come right back.
I waited, and while I did, I took a quick look around the office for another way out in case I might need it. There wasn't any unless the steel door in one of the walls was it. But before I could try it, the other door opened. I wasn't expecting Fred Koo to return so quickly, and neither was I expecting who did come in.
I didn't expect to find you here, Mr. Dollar.
Likewise, Mrs. McQueen.
I was looking for Mr. Koo.
What for?
Well, I thought I might help if I could. Mickey kept this notebook, you see, where he wrote down all the places he stopped when he made his rounds. This place was one of them. I thought if I could talk to this Mr. Koo.
Did you know Fred Koo?
Oh, I know.
You know anybody named Weaver, Thelma Weaver?
All right, mister. That's enough. Reach.
Don't be crazy. What good would that do?
Stay where you are. Don't try anything. I really mean it.
She looked like she really meant it. It was a small revolver, Colt 25. I didn't know whether she had come in meaning to use it on Fred Koo or me, but it didn't make much difference at the moment. She had it pointed at my midsection. I couldn't figure it. She held her little revolver as if she was used to the feel of it. But there had been something actressy about the way she said reach. I couldn't figure her, but I decided not to take a chance. I grabbed up the inkwell from the desk and threw not it, but the contents at her.
Hey, what's it?
Okay, drop it. Drop it. Drop it. Now sit down.
All right. What do you want?
That depends on what you want.
I told you. I want to find out who killed Mickey.
At the apartment earlier today, you didn't think anybody had. What about it?
All right, Johnny. How much do you know?
That your name was Thelma Weaver, that you spent 2 years in Joliet.
That's right. And after 2 years in that place, I didn't want to go back to the life and start all over again. I gave the bunch in Chicago the slip and came here. I was hanging around trying to pick up enough to pay my way to Florida or someplace, and that's how I met Mickey. He arrested me. Vagrancy. What a laugh. He showed in court the next morning and got me released in his custody. Oh, he treated me like a daughter. He loaned me some money, offered to get me a job, and I really felt for the first time like I could start life all over again. Oh, I know it sounds corny, but...
But good. You make it sound real good.
You don't believe me, do you?
Sure. I believe you as far as you've gone. I even believe the part about starting a new life. You saw that Mickey had a heart as big as the city, and you didn't lose any time moving into it. That was smart. It was about the safest hiding place you could have found. For you, but not for Mickey.
How did I know about Fred Koo? Somebody spotted me and told him. And he didn't waste any time getting in touch with Chicago.
Those men out there, they all from Chicago?
Well, most of them. Did you spot the tall one? He talks with an English accent.
Yeah, I remember him. Roy?
That's him. He came first. He checked the possibilities on Mickey's beating. Then he found out about Mickey being moved over to a new job.
Where was he being moved?
Some desk job.
Where?
At the police arsenal.
The arsenal. How did Roy find that out?
I told him. I had to. He made me tell him.
What are Roy's plans, do you know?
Yeah. The Marquardt building. The one that has all the wholesale jewelers.
Nah, that's no good. Mickey was supposed to help them with a job of that size, or they'd reveal that he was married to an ex-con. That's not enough. They must have more than that on you or him.
All right. Might well tell you. Can't hurt me now any more than I've been hurt. His name is Roy Weaver. I'm married to him. He threatened to bring bigamy charges unless Mickey helped him.
That would do it. With your record, bigamy would be a long stretch.
Yeah, 5 years. Mickey would do almost anything rather than cause me to...
Who killed him?
Roy did. I wasn't there, I swear I wasn't. But they met him after he got through work at 5:30 this morning.
Why did they kill him?
Mickey was all ready for his new job, and he had the keys to the arsenal.
Here's your gun. If you're on the level, you may need it, and the caliber's too small to do me any good.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to the police.
Why not use the phone?
It'll be tapped, and it would take too long to explain it. That bunch would be in here before I got started.
I wouldn't try it if I were you.
Where are you going, Dollar? I'm going home. I was waiting for Fred Koo, but I guess he decided not to bother.
Fred had to leave. Did Mrs. Weaver entertain you with her sordid story?
Yeah, it was very pleasant.
A charming girl. You were going home to think about it.
Well, if you don't mind, get out of my way.
Carl, Benson, I'm afraid I do mind. I couldn't chance having Fred interrupted at the arsenal.
Get out of my way! Hey, where you gone? Come on! That's enough!
Ah, that's fine, Carl. Now, shall we go back to the office and wait? Bring him along, Carl. It's a pity you became involved in this, Dollar. I'd hoped there wouldn't have to be any more violence.
You did stop him.
Yes. Thanks for the buzz, darling.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Look what the skunk did to my dress. Did Fred get started all right?
He's well on his way. Should be back within the hour.
Hey, Mr. Weaver, what do we do with this guy?
Oh, keep him out of the way. Put him in there. And see that he stays quiet.
Sure. Hey, you. Turn around.
At least I found out what was behind the steel door I'd noticed earlier in the evening. When my eyes opened and I got accustomed to the light from a single dust-covered bulb, I realized that I was in a sort of wine cellar. There were some bottles, but most of the storage space was taken up by a large, varied assortment of burglar's tools. There were a few weapons, too, but I knew they were nothing compared to what Fred would bring back if the raid on the arsenal was successful. I glanced at my watch at 11:15, and right after that, I heard the heavy latch on the door being turned. I got back into my position on the floor, closed my eyes, and listened.
Don't forget the bars, Carl. You'll need them for the inside doors.
I got you. Hey, Benson, you take these. I'll bring the rest. You want the guns in there, Mr. Weaver?
We won't need them. Crocker.
Yeah?
Listen closely now. We're behind schedule. Both cars are in back. In the Buick, you'll find the things from the arsenal.
Yeah.
I want you to move half of them over into the Cadillac.
What about the grenades, Roy?
They're in a case marked CN-DM, irritant gas M6.
I got it.
Open the case and put half in the Buick. The most important is the cordite powder for the vaults. There are 2 boxes. Put one in the trunk of each car.
Right.
Be careful. It's very touchy stuff.
Yeah, I know. I've handled it before.
All right, get along then, and hurry.
It won't take long.
Now, Fred will be in charge of one car. I'll be in the other.
It's all right.
We're agreed that we'll meet at the north entrance at midnight, both to approach the building from the east on Lincoln. You will have dropped 2 men to guard the south entrance. 2 of my men will subdue the guard at the north.
It'll be better. They'll spring the alarm in a big hurry.
You can trust me. They'll use Thompson's. Thelma!
Yes, Roy?
Where are you going?
Well, don't be so snoopy. I'm going to powder my nose.
You're coming with us.
Oh, Roy, if you want me to.
I don't need you, but I don't think I should feel safe without you with me. Don't be long.
I'll be right back.
Think everything is ready for men here, Mr. Weaver.
Good. Go to the cars then, Carl.
What about the Seamus dear?
Oh, lock him up again. We'll decide what to do when we come back.
I guess he can't cause no harm in there.
I tried to force the door that time using one of the bars they had left behind, but I couldn't do anything with it. Then I started poking the cement walls. I knew better than to expect to find any other exit, but with the biggest burglary in the history of Hartford underway, I had to do something. I kept a check on the time, and it was 20 minutes before they were due to arrive at the Marquardt building when a sound stopped me. The steel door was being opened. I moved behind it, still holding my bar.
Dollar, it's Ned Martin. You in here?
Yeah, Martin. I'm here. How did you know I was here?
Some dame phoned the hotel. She told me you were here. What happened?
Why should she call you?
How should I know? I don't even know who it was. Just said she knew you came to the hotel and that you were locked up in here. I mentioned the Calcutta to you, so I came over to see what it was all about. What's the matter? Don't you believe me?
I don't know what to believe. You said you were holding something out on me when I talked to you.
I was. I knew Fred Koo was selling the information about Mickey's wife to some guns from Chicago. I knew it could have led to trouble.
Why didn't you tell me? You said it was for my own good.
I thought it was, and mine too. I didn't want you to know so much you'd have to tell where you learned it, to prove how smart you were. I don't like this kind of stuff.
You got a car?
Yeah, but it stays right where it's parked till you tell me what's going on.
This Chicago bunch raided the police arsenal. They're armed with everything from cordite to Tommy guns. They're going into the Marquardt building in less than 20 minutes.
What's that?
Wholesale jewelers. Would you take me out there?
I'll take you part way if you're crazy enough to want to go.
That's good enough. Let's get into the office. It's dead.
Who'd you want? The police?
Yeah.
We could stop on the way.
It'll take us 15 minutes to get to the Marquardt building. If we run into a patrol car on the way, we'll stop it. If we don't, you can drop me and then phone in. Where's your car? At the speed we traveled, we should have at least picked up a traffic cop, but we didn't. Martin wouldn't take me any closer than the corner of Atlantic and Milton. And we reached there at 12 minutes after 12. That gave me 2 minutes to get to the Marquardt building. I didn't make it before they arrived, but it didn't make any difference. Both cars had pulled up and were unloading men. From a doorway about 50 yards down, I spotted Fred Koo and Roy Weaver. Then I saw Thelma. She She got out of the Buick and started toward me.
Hilda, where are you going?
Weaver shouted at her, but she didn't answer. Instead, she stopped, and I saw the little gun glitter in her hand as she turned back to them. Then I saw what she was aiming at. The trunk of the Buick, where the cordite powder was.
Hilda! Hilda! Stop it!
The car went up in a blast of powder and gasoline, and she moved back toward the other one. That was it. Thelma Weaver McQueen, as the department knows, was DOA at Emergency Hospital. None of the mob got out alive except Roy Weaver, who lived long enough to sign a confession to Mickey McQueen's murder. I want you to know that I may have lost a good friend, but you have lost a better policeman. I hope to see those early news accounts that called him a suicide corrected. Expense account total, no dollars and no cents. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dodd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, The Redhead and the Cowboy. Featured in tonight's cast were Bill Conrad, Martha Wentworth, Herb Butterfield, Jack Moyles, and Ray Hartman. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
There'll be fast-moving, true police adventure on CBS tonight when Gangbusters comes your way again on most of these same stations. This evening, Gangbusters presents The Case of the Stranger in the Hall. Stay tuned now for 5 minutes of the latest news. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, it's basically the same story. Different cast, though. Other than Edmund O'Brien, the only similarity between these two Mickey McQueen matters is the appearance of Bill Conrad in terms of cast. This episode always a little disappointing in that our hero doesn't actually arrive and do anything, but is more just a witness to what ends up occurring. But definitely heartfelt and good to see Johnny Dollar involved in this case, and does help to, I think, humanize the character in that regard. We're pleased to welcome our first so far sign up for the friend of the show link exchange. We're linked to by ravellings.blogspot.com, ravellings.blogspot.com. Also had a discussion over on Facebook about the report that ITV, the British company that produces the Poirot mysteries, may cancel the program. Deborah says, "No, David played the best Poirot ever. I always look for the movies and shows. Say it ain't so. If it is the end, I hope they do the final Agatha story of Poirot. Let it in." Karen said, "No way, they filmed almost all of them. I love the series, David. Suchet is so perfect as Poirot." And Deborah adds, "This would be stupid, but then when has TV ever been anything but stupid when making big decisions?" Well, thanks so much. Appreciate all the comments and responses there. And I certainly hope they do somehow manage to wrap it up. because they've done all but 6 of the Poirot stories. So it'd be a shame for them to end up stopping now. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back on Monday with the Abbotts, and of course, be sure to watch This Weekend. On Sunday, we will be putting up the next Ronald Howard Sherlock Holmes adventure. You'll be sure to want to watch that. In the meanwhile, send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.